Oversight to approach the front dais. Chair, ready when you are.
To order. Good morning and welcome to today's hearing, to today's committee hearing on public housing. I'm Councilmember Chris Banks, Chair of the Public Housing Committee, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Marte and Councilmember Elsie Icacion. We are here today to conduct an oversight hearing on NYCHA's security practices for vacant apartments and to examine the authority's failure to properly secure those units. That failure has had real consequences, putting residents' safety at risk, delaying access to housing, and undermining public trust. NYCHA reports more than 6,000 vacant apartments, while roughly 165,000 families remain on the waiting list, many waiting for years for housing. At a time of such high demand, leaving units unsecured is not just insufficient, it is irresponsible. It delays repairs, slows leasing, and puts residents at risk. Last month, the Department of Investigation confirmed these failures. Its report found that weak vacancy controls allowed hundreds of apartments to be illegally occupied. Published reporting has shown that more than 600 units were taken over by squatters, while eligible families continue to wait without answers or options. That raises serious questions, including one, how are units going from vacant to illegally occupied with NYCHA's knowledge? Two, why are there no consistent checks to confirm units remain secure? Three, where is the breakdown on the ground or at the leadership level? And four, most importantly, are residents truly being prioritized when it comes to safety? Right now, those answers are not clear, and that is deeply concerning. NYCHA does not consistently verify whether vacant units remain vacant, which should be the bare minimum. But even more troubling, the authority uses identical locks across multiple units, meaning a single compromised lock can put an entire building at risk. And that simply defies common sense. We all recognize the reality of decades of underfunding and disinvestment in public housing, but those challenges cannot excuse preventable failures or poor management decisions that put residents at risk. If everything, limited resources demand stronger discipline, sharper oversight, and stronger leadership. And when 74 senior NYCHA executives, each earning more than $200,000 a year, collectively accounting for nearly $15 million in salary, it is fair to ask whether that level of investment in leadership is producing results, especially when basic responsibilities like securing vacant units are not being met. Public service is about accountability, and accountability is measured by outcomes. What we are seeing here is not just an isolated lapse. It is a pattern of mismanagement that has become far too familiar at NYCHA. Basic operational controls are breaking down, and the consequences are being felt not in the boardrooms, but in the developments where residents already deal with enough instability. When vacant apartments are left unsecured, when oversight is inconsistent, and when preventable problems linger, that is a failure of management to do their jobs the residents depend on them to do. And let's be honest about who bears the cost of that failure. The families living in NYCHA developments do not have luxury retreating places like Todd Hill or on Staten Island or Norfolk or Long Island or Westchester when systems break down. They live with the consequences every day in Linden Boulevard houses, on Fountain Avenue, or on Surf Avenue. That reality makes it clear why NYCHA cannot continue to do business as usual. This moment demands new eyes, fresh scrutiny, and a willingness to challenge the entrenched practices that are clearly not working. Residents deserve leadership that looks at these problems with urgency and independence, and that is willing to change the course when failures persist. When vacant units become magnets for illegal activity, and when safety is compromised, and when much needed housing sits unused, the NYCHA leadership must act urgently. It is time for the authority to get its house in order, focus on the fundamentals, and demonstrate true results, not assurances that resident safety, stewardship of public housing are true to its top priorities. DOI has put forward clear recommendations, and NYCHA has committed to implementing them, and that is noted. But commitments alone is not enough. Execution is what matters. Today, this committee expects answers. We want to know how these recommendations will be implemented, what the timeline is, what staffing and oversight measures will be put in place, and how accountability will be enforced when failures occur. We will also examine how vacancy security is handled under PAC and the Public Housing Preservation Trust, and whether those models are closing gaps or creating new ones. Finally, we will hear from residents and advocates who live in these conditions every day, and their experience must be guided by how we move forward. I want to thank my entire staff, Michael Lambert, Kyle Graham, along with my committee staff, Jose, Charles, Spencer, Sierra Towns, and for the work in preparing today's hearing. And also, I gotta also make an announcement that Sierra was gonna be leaving our committee, but we want to thank her for her leadership, thank her for her support on this particular committee. So thank you. So now, in keeping with tradition, we had obviously stepped away from that for our budget hearing. We will now move to allow a pre-panel and allow the residents from NYCHA to speak. And hopefully this time, NYCHA, you'll sit and listen. Oh, you have no choice. So now we will begin with, we'll have Nigel Dupree. We have Ramona Fiera. Zule Vasquez. And Mete Scarsi. We're going to have a second panel for the also the pre-panel. So those folks who came in late, just be prepared after. Well, we actually can, hold on, we have 2 more seats. So we'll do Emmanuel Martinez. You may begin. Starting with you, Nigel.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the council and committee for allowing me to speak today. My name is Nigel Dupree. I'm a proud resident of Brook Island Housing in East New York.
Nigel, just hold on 1 minute. The clock, each NYCHA resident or member will get 5 minutes. Thank you. If we could have the clock correspond with that. Thank you. You may begin.
Once again, good morning. Thank you for the committee for allowing me to give my testimony today. My name is Nigel Dupree, proud resident of Brooklyn Housing, and also serves on Community Board 18. There's a couple of topics that I want to bring up today if the committee would allow me within my time. First of all, I want to say, speaking with the Tenant Association president to this morning, is about 100 vacant apartments in my development. We know we have a squatter problem. We know we have a lot of tenants who requested transfers that hasn't been transferred yet. As far as it is senior with safety apartments or people who dealt with disputes in the community and want to relocate from that building, those are some of our main issues as far as vacancy go. Another main issue in our community is molds and leaks. Recently, we had a contract company that came in and did the lead program where they drilled in the wall. After they left, we faced a lot of leakage but it was like no one was taking responsibility, not NYCHA, not the contractors. They was just pointing fingers at each other until they was gone, and we're still dealing with that issue. And another issue we have as far as our development in Brooklyn Housing, we are actually facing a shelter that's being built on 108th, which is the men's shelter. We already have a rehab center on Farragut Road and right next to the train station. They already have a shelter right across the street from it, which is a family shelter. So now we're facing 108th Street, a men's shelter being built. So that actually surrounds our community, and we understand people need places to go, and shelter's an option. But to have so much that's affected right across the street from our community is unacceptable. So I leave my time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Good morning. My name is Guatuke Ini Naru, and my colonial name is Ramona. I am the founder of Safe Section 9 and a tenant from Mitchell Houses in the South Bronx. I am delivering this testimony on behalf of my neighbors and our members. At a time when our shelters overflow and families struggle to afford rent, we should all be angry that NYCHA is warehousing apartments. And what NYCHA is doing is warehousing. It is a tactic used by multiple housing authorities around the country. We saw it in Chicago before Cabrini crumbled. We saw it in St. Louis before Pruitt Eagle imploded. It is strategic, it is purposeful, it is diabolical. It is the slumification disguised as ineptness. NYCHA will tell you that the unoccupied units are a result of lead abatement and internal transfers creating a backlog. This is not true. There are 6,800 unoccupied units at NYCHA because their organizational plan deprioritized their original mission. Instead of providing safe homes and communities that support upward mobility, NYCHA has transformed into a real estate broker. NYCHA used to employ enough DC-9 glazers, DC-9 painters, SEIU auto mechanics, UBCJ carpenters, IUOE oilers, IBT roofers, IBT plasterers, CWA administrative managers to provide adequate services and rehab our units. Now they don't. Instead, they contract out critical roles, making rehabilitation more expensive and lengthier. According to Daniel, in the Instagram, which was really nice, post from yesterday, he's explaining that lead abatement is a really lengthy process, right? But research will tell you that it takes 3 to 11 days to do an apartment. To that, we can add permitting, clearance, and testing. So let's say 20 days. But it takes NYCHA 4 to 6 months. Yes, NYCHA is putting these units through extensive needed rehabilitation, but they do so by hiring contractors to fill the voids left by a shrinking union labor force. Depending on development, NYCHA must contract a plumber, carpenter, painter, or plasterer for each job. That's the root of the delay. NYCHA plays Jenga with these contractors while units remain vacant or are taken over by squatters. This deteriorates our quality of life and endangers tenants. but not every squatter is a threat. In December of 2024, a mom moved into an empty unit at Ingersoll Houses. She and her daughter were there for 4 months before management noticed. She left the shelter out of fear. This story is heartbreaking because it demonstrates the systemic impact of this Islamification. Working families are on waiting lists and in shelters, earning less than $32,000 a year. AMI units do not support that income level for working poor New Yorkers. Only NYCHA does. These empty units are not monitored or secured by management. So squatters move in, like they did into the unit at Mitchell Houses, and the residents try to alert management, report it to the police, call the police, find overdose deaths, find blood in their hallway, record all this information, get support from maintenance staff, and it is not resolved in a timely manner. So yeah, some bring crime, but others bring hope. So what do? We call on the New York City Council, since Zoran has not been supportive of public housing. We are hoping that you will hold him accountable to these requests. We ask that you institute a moratorium on privatization via project-based Section 8, which is RAD-PAC, and the Housing Preservation Trust. It's obvious that NYCHA can use this time to assess their performance, recalibrate, and refocus on their core responsibility, which is managing Section 9 housing for New York City. The moratorium should be reliant on an impact study conducted in similarity to what was requested by Congresswoman Maxine Waters back in 2023 when she first noted the problems with this program. We wish to have a new organizational plan. This last plan, which was put in place in 2020, was denounced fiercely by tenants and was adopted in spite of our testimonies and our objections. According to the elders in public housing in New York City, the best plans are found between 1965 and 1970. And we encourage you to support NYCHA's growth.
You can finish.
Thank you. We encourage you to support NYCHA's growth, but ensure that hiring focuses on union personnel for roles that improve tenants' quality of life. That would look like shifting the $663 million that Zoran wants to give to PAC towards public housing. That number only gets you 22,000 project-based Section 8 vouchers for 1 year. 1 year. Instead, you could rehabilitate Wagner Houses, which is 22 buildings with 2,100 units for the next 100 years of family stability. We ask that you support the repeal of the stock transfer tax, which would bring us $2 billion, that you allocate 10% from the Fair Share Act, and that you work with folks in Albany and in DC to make sure that the Make Billionaires Pay Their Fair Share Act brings us $22 billion annually for public housing. In closing, we urge this committee and Speaker Menon to recognize the opportunity that NYCHA represents. As a city, we are in fiscal crisis, and this crisis has made it clear that the private market will never provide housing that is decent, safe, and affordable. This is why public housing was created in this city. After decades, we've been investing in Band-Aid subsidies and tax schemes that temporarily house those left behind by market rate rents. Meanwhile, NYCHA families have benefited from stability, resources, and benefits envied by those in the private market, desired by Zoran and Sia for them. It's time to provide safe, truly affordable, protected, and vibrant homes and communities to every New Yorker. It's time to invest in Section 9.
Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Good morning, Chair Banks, members of the Public Housing Committee. My name is Mateen Sarsi. I serve as the co-chair of the Housing, Land Use, and Zoning Committee for Manhattan Community Board 9, and I also am an employee of the New York City Housing Authority. However, my testimony today is in my own personal capacity, and the views expressed in this statement are my own and do not reflect any official position or policy. That being said, when it comes to vacancies, this is a personal issue for me. I've been working around public housing for about 13 years now, and Uh, Almost 10 years ago, when my father first needed help with applying for housing, he had asked me, what can I do to help him secure that? And I had to look at him in the face and told him, listen, even if I was CEO of NYCHA, I cannot get you an apartment. That's just not how it works. And you're going to have to wait. This past month, he just got his call in, and while he did not get accepted into Section 9, he did get accepted into Section 8. I'm no one to tell anyone, whether, what to choose for their own housing, despite how I might feel for it. But the crazy thing is, in the 13 years that I've done this, I've actually never seen anyone get housing. I've helped people stay in housing, but that was a new experience for me, and kind of reminds me why I'm in this, and realistically why this mission for public housing is important. That being said, when it comes to security, part of it is I think we have to look at a much more comprehensive strategy, because we're looking at a symptom. We're not really looking at the overall systemic problem. And part of that, coming from city council myself, I served council member 11 as his housing specialist. We had 7 public housing communities in our district. And when it came to security, one of the things that I know we had to do back then, it's much different now. Now you have capital project liaisons. Now you have a variety of people that you could work with at NYCHA in a different way. But back then, we had relationships with our resident associations. And so Brian could tell you almost famously how I would show up to almost every capital project meeting. And just really trying to get a feel for what kind of challenges NYCHA would have, what kind of challenges residents would face, and then how we as representatives could help mitigate some of these things. And one of the things that I found almost fascinating was, and a huge shout out to the capital projects team. Like they do a fantastic job, and when they lay out their needs, when they talk about their challenges, and you're able to kind of work with them, you could really see some really interesting results. And so I'll use one of this as an example. Berry Street, South 9th Street houses in Brooklyn. Attending a capital projects meeting, we had allocated some funding for security cameras, and meeting with the engineers, they looked at what we wanted and they said, listen, we can do what you want, or we can use the money you currently have allocated, and we could set up the infrastructure so that whatever funding you get in the future is much cheaper, and we'll make sure we give you estimates. In some cases, depending on what's going on in development, we were able to reallocate certain funding amounts so that we could move capital projects at a much quicker pace. And of course, if you're working with Brian, he'll let you know how that might happen. And it just kind of created a really good sense of being able to not only address capital project needs, but also look at safety and security as a whole, where, and again, shout out to the capital projects team. They developed there's a NYCHA Connected Communities initiative. Love the team there. They really helped shape how I rethought community centers, and how nonprofits who may be receiving funding from the public sector can work with NYCHA to develop those projects, while allowing for NYCHA capital projects to focus on their high priority needs, which is the roofings, the facade work, the things that would affect the insides. That being said, in doing so, I think throughout the whole portfolio, if we're looking at common areas and community centers, things that are really high social value impact, you're looking at about $7.8 billion if you were to address those things just through social impact. And, we're talking about something systemic in which there's a system that allows folks to feel comfortable enough to walk into these situations and do what they have to do to put a roof over their head, whether we agree with how it's happening or not. But thank you for the time.
You may finish if you need a little more, a minute again. You good?
I'll submit the written.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Next. Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ulay Velasquez. I'm the Tenant Association President at Jacob Reese Houses. At my capacity, I want to say that the vacancies are a problem, but I know for sure at least 2 people have identified, not specific apartments, but Jacob Priest does have apartments that are being illegally resided and occupied. Sorry. And it's sad because I came from fighting against the privatization to becoming the TA president, still not being able to like fully sit down with my management team because of the whole situation with the TA at Jacob Race. First, they interrupted the election, and that's true, you know. They illegally interrupted that to do the PAC vote. And then because of our 30-year bylaws, we have 9 positions, 2 chaplains that are illegal, separation between church and state. There's a big problem with this. And I only bring that up because though this is a hearing for vacancies, these issues that I could be addressing with management and working with the TA to deal with, address, I can't do. You know, it's real unfortunate. And it created like this situation where, you know, there's a break in communication or even like leadership building among the TA, because now they're so upset that it's taken so long. And now, you know, they're upset about things I even did as president-elect. Like, for an example, get a grant for air purifiers for the most contaminated buildings in Reese. It's like really ridiculous. But I will say this. I hope it gets better, but with these keys, it is also a big problem. The keys open up every single space. For my space, particularly, people have keys to it, you know? From the old TA to the new TA, they left things behind. I thought they didn't leave me nothing. I'm like, wow, that's really bad. Because even as a souvenir, they took the sign, you know? I'm like, what's going on, right? No computer, no nothing. How did they conduct business? Well, apparently they left computer, a lot of stuff, and it was taken. So who took it? These common keys. So you'd see the NYCHA took my stuff that was supposed to be there for the residents, for the TA to support the residents, or random people who have these keys. I reported it, you know, and now it's like, okay, so what's going to happen? There's a sewer baggage coming into the room. A lot of stuff got damaged. I'm asking what's going to happen to be replaced for my stuff. Nothing still, but guess what happened? Even after that, stuff is still getting stolen. So all this stuff that I did as TA-elect, I had to throw away. Not only did I throw it away, they're still stealing stuff. The people who either are apparently coming to clean the spot up or people who are coming from outside with the key. I've asked for it to be replaced. It hasn't been changed. And, you know, that causes a big problem. I see residents actually I've seen them open the gate to just let their dogs go into areas that I guess that they have plans for infill, but we have plans for a garden and we have plans for other things for those spaces. And it's really sad because my safety and security, you know, the other day I came into the TA room and I left the cart outside and I went through the whole site to make sure no one was hiding in the bathroom or in any of the closed rooms. Because I don't know, you're stealing stuff. Someone's stealing stuff, you're getting in. If you're getting in, or NYCHA staff is doing it. You know, so what's really happening here? You know, and it's really sad. It's really sad to see. And I would like to also say, like, why is it that the number of vacancies, like, it almost seems like it doesn't go down? Nothing is going down. The price of debt is not going down. The units is not going down. Nothing is going down. If you have already done PAC for X amount of years, you've gotten some money, why is it that these numbers haven't gone down? But also, I think there's been some type of merger with Section 8 and Section 9. And I'll keep saying that because it makes no sense. I had a family member who was Section 8 eligible, applied, waited 13 years, got approved. When I got this letter for this person, it clearly say, you know, something that was not the authority. Somehow residents, anyone who qualifies for Section 8 is getting a letter from housing, not from what is it? Not from any other agency. It's the authority that's handling these these actual apartments, these vouchers, and where they putting the people.
Right. You can go. You need more time to wrap
Just
up.
a-
Yes.
yeah.
One more minute to
Yeah,
wrap
yeah.
it up.
Also, I'm a cab driver. I'm a cab driver, and I've gotten customers in my car that say that they're being contacted from the authorities saying, "Hey, you have this voucher and you're utilizing it here, but you can come to section 9." So they're trying. I think what's happening is that they're trying to convert within and only use section 8 residents and convert them, change them, and bring them over to public housing to convert them from within. That's what I think is occurring.
Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on this pre-panel. So, my name is Manny Martinez. I am the resident council president for South Jamaica Houses, also the Queens South District chair for that fraudulent organization. And so, speaking about vacant apartments, securing vacant apartments are an issue under NYCHA managed public housing because there exists a broader issue of trespasses lodging in our staircases, basements, rooftops, and at times in front of our apartment doors. Ever so mindful of the opportunities of unsecured vacant apartments. NYCHA's policy on public safety is similar to an arts and craft class for the highly paid, unmotivated, and disinterested. You don't live there, and it doesn't affect you, so give it your best shot. Keys to empty apartments, slop sink rooms, and basement back doors circulate like candy on Halloween amongst the trespasser population that has become an additional ghost population living in public housing's basements, staircases, rooftops, and unsecured vacant apartments. At a Federal Monitor's CAC meeting in November 2025, NYCHA's Public Safety Department informed us of what the NYPD and district attorneys won't do and reduce NYCHA's efforts to discreet walking tours that mobilizes HRA lobbies to our common space areas, a practice that further enables this population's lodging stability in our common areas. NYCHA has no effective policy to address this because NYCHA has been weaponized against public housing residents by New York City and New York State. For example, ERAP funding for the pandemic implemented in the 2021-2022 session under S2742 stated under Section 60310, an individual, family, or household shall not be eligible for this program if they live in housing owned or managed by a public housing authority. Prior to that state legislation being ratified, the U.S. Treasury released a FAQ that was speaking directly to public housing and other federally housed, federal housing subsidized rents, that due to the disproportionate effects such as refusal could have on populations intended to receive assistance under the ERA and the potential for such a practice to violate applicable law, including Title VI, Section 504, and the Fair Housing Act. Currently, NYCHA has a $500 million rent to arrears tail that has followed it since then. In this spirit, NYCHA has used this policy making to create its own brand of an unlawful resident organization that is recognizable by NYCHA's policy and NYCHA's policy alone. A policy in complete contradiction to public housing residents' exclusive federal right to establish independent representation through resident organizations at their own discretion. NYCHA's policy creation also obstructs public housing's residents' federal rights to participate in housing policy making beyond an advisory role. And this is the legislation that Part 964 regulations reinforce, with terms as actively participate and advise and assist. When discussing resident councils, advise and assist when discussing resident councils. Imagine policies that create higher public safety standards and that address actual experiences of safety concerns in vacant apartments constructed in partnership with the population most affected, public housing residents, the way Congress intended when those rights were established. And so I'm asking for the Public Housing Committee to take this into consideration, start doing some audits on NYCHA's implementation of policy and how it aligns with public housing's rights. I thank you for this time. Take care.
Thank you for your testimony. That concludes this pre-panel. Thank you.
Now we will move to the next pre-panel. We have Reginald Bowman, Carla Hollingsworth, Reverend Kevin McCall, and Christina Chase. All right, you may begin your testimony. Starter, Mr. Bowman.
Good morning. Because I testified at the previous hearing, I'm going to keep this very brief, and I'm going to really focus on the topic of the hearing so that I can stay within the framework of my time frame. Today we are facing a crisis of mismanagement and neglect in public housing. I think that the chair of the committee has made it quite clear that NYCHA is being mismanaged, and it's a crisis, and it's an ongoing crisis. As someone who served for many years on several different incarnations of resident leadership and testified at over 100 hearings, NYCHA's problem is mismanagement and needing to have someone in some group of people in those seats that actually know how to run an institution of this magnitude. Over 6,700 NYCHA apartments sit vacant, while more than 165,000 families remain on waiting lists for housing. These units are sitting empty for nearly a year on average, not because they aren't needed, but because of bureaucratic delays, underfunding, and failed management systems. At the same time, vacant apartments have become a public safety risk, and the people who have testified before me have made that quite clear. This is unacceptable. Every time I come to this office and I look around, I see the progress of private sector high-rises, and NYCHA sits here at 250 Broadway and still does not know how to manage a portfolio that they've had for a number of years. And again, I must reiterate, it's because of the people who sit in those management seats who are overpaid and underqualified. We must treat every vacant unit as an emergency housing opportunity, especially during this time that we're facing a housing crisis in this city and indeed the state and the nation. My recommendations, and I will submit these recommendations in writing: establish an emergency vacancy takeover task force. Something has to be done now to take over this problem, because the more we talk about it in real time, the worse it gets. Establish a 90-day mandate to return vacant units to occupancy, and deploy dedicated repair teams only focused on vacancies. One of the previous people who testified talked about the fact that the workforce of NYCHA has been reduced to a let's contract it out to private sector people, and so they're not really addressing the operational needs of the facilities that we live in. Capital funding allocation for turnovers. Allocate target funding. Create a projected budget timeline. Eliminate shared keys and implement unit-specific locking systems. Decentralize bureaucratic bottlenecks. Reduce centralized approved delays that stall repairs. Transparency and reporting. I could go on with this, but Mr. Chair and those who are on the panel, NYCHA needs to be managed correctly. This is the 26th year of the 21st century, and we're talking about AI and everything else, and we're watching this city on one level grow, and we're seeing the institutions that have maintained our city and its framework and its infrastructure deteriorate, especially for those of us who are living in the public housing community. So I suggest and recommend that in addition to this document that I'm going to submit to the City Council for review, that serious consideration be taken in examining the abilities and skills of the people who are in the NYCHA executive department on down. If people don't know how to manage the executive department and to manage a facility of this magnitude, and there are plenty of examples of the successful management of this type of an institution, then they need to be not just removed, but a seriously well thought out professional team needs to be put together to make sure that the management of the New York City Housing Authority is in the hands of competent people who know how to run this type of institution. And with that, I have the same testimony that I had submitted before, but it's not on topic. I will also submit that, and hopefully we will have this year a successful gathering of elected officials and residents together and put together a public policy statement that's going to reinstitute Section 9 funding and put back into place the things for the New York City Housing Authority in funding and in management that are necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. My name is Carla Hollingsworth. I am a resident at Stuyvesant Gardens 1. I'm also the secretary of the Tenants Association. And just one thought, there's no accountability and there's never going to be any because there are no consequences. The only consequences are visited on the residents. The only accountability that, we have seen is none. But to speak on the vacant apartments, okay, we have gotten many calls from residents who, one resident, there's two women who live on the floor and there's two vacant apartments across the hall from them. And those vacant apartments were left open with the doors ajar. They called management and nothing happened, okay? So after a week, they called the Tenants Association and we were able to speak with management and eventually get somebody over there to lock the doors, okay? That's just one building. There are other buildings. We all have a vacancy in our buildings over there. And we're all suffering because there are people who are sleeping on roofs while we don't have intercoms so that we can buzz people in. So the workers are actually leaving the doors open so they can gain access to the building, okay? And people get in the building, they go on the roof, they have their little zippered bag with their pillows and their comforters and everything. They get real comfortable up on the roofs, okay? And now it's at a point where management is telling the Tenants Association they're taking pictures of things, and what is it that we are supposed to do? Okay, are we supposed to go accost these people? It's not really clear, And at the end of the day, we have residents who were supposed to have reasonable accommodations, and they don't get the reasonable accommodations. So we have a resident who is stuck in a nursing home until she can get an apartment on a lower floor. She's 90 years old, okay? She cannot walk up to the fourth floor anymore. She went into rehab for a moment, okay? Now I hear that all of her belongings are gone, okay? So where did they go to? Who took them? Then underneath me, there's a vacancy, and there was a big deal about them trying to illegally evict a resident suffering from dementia, okay? Her family came and got her, which, they're trying to work out her situation and get her home care and everything. And the next thing you know, they go to get some of her belongings for her. They couldn't get into the apartment. Now there's a padlock on the apartment. You know, they say that she's coming back, okay, but she's been gone for 2 years now, you know, and these things are happening all over. And we're a small development. We have 331 apartments, okay? So I can only imagine what's going on at the larger developments, you know. But when people call you at 2 o'clock in the morning and say they're afraid, can, you know, we get somebody to come over because they think they hear a noise in the apartment across the hall that's supposed to be vacant, but the door is ajar, okay? And it's left that way by management, okay, or the maintenance workers or whomever was in the apartment. And it's happening all over, you know. We don't know what to do. We have been trying our best to, you know, complain to whomever we're supposed to complain to, but a lot of the time we're ignored. Nobody hears us. I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's so many different things going on, okay, but it was my understanding that this hearing was about the safety of the vacant apartments, and they're very unsafe, and the residents are not feeling safe, and it's very stressful for our seniors. We have a lot of seniors. We have a senior building, but we have seniors in every single building of Stuyvesant 1, okay? Some of them in their 80s and older. And they have a right to feel comfortable and safe where they live. I have residents who don't even want to go outside unless, you know, are you going shopping? Yes. What do you need, you know? Oh, could you just come with me to the supermarket? Okay, fine, no problem, I'll do that. But when you've lived that long, you should have some peace in your life, okay? And when people are telling you that they're going to improve your quality of life, it should be improved, and it's not being improved at all.
Thank you for your testimony. Next.
Good morning, Chairman Banks, member of this committee. Good morning, everyone besides NYCHA execs. My name is Reverend Kevin McCall. I've been an advocate for NYCHA for many years. I come today not just an advocate, but a voice for NYCHA residents who are tired of being disrespected by a system that was built to serve them. Let me be very clear from the beginning. What is happening in NYCHA right now is not just mismanagement, it's a systematic neglect. We are in the middle of a housing crisis in New York City. Families are sleeping in shelters. Working people cannot afford rent. Seniors are waiting for years for stable housings. In the middle of all this, NYCHA is sitting on thousands of vacant apartments, not dozens, not a small backlog, but thousands. This is not normal. This is unacceptable. This is a complete failure of leadership, because every single one of those vacant apartments could be housing a family tonight. NYCHA don't care. Every single one, but inside those doors remain closed, while those are on the outside continue to be able to sleep on the floors of NYCHA. And let's not talk about what's happening in apartments that sit empty. They just don't stay vacant. They become targets for illegal activity, targets for gangs, targets for drugs, use, and violence. So while NYCHA delayed repairs and dragged its feet, residents are forced to live next door to dangers. There's so many residents that want to be able to be inside housing apartments, but they don't care to fill them with people. Vacant apartments in NYCHA are creating unsafe conditions for every people that are supposed to protect. This is not just a housing issue, it's a public safety crisis. Now, here's where it becomes very more unacceptable. While it's happening, while families are waiting, while units sit empty, while crime fills the gaps and neglect, NYCHA executives are being paid six-figure salaries, some making well over $200,000 a year. So I ask again, what are we paying for? Because it's not urgency, it's not effectiveness, it's definitely not results. You cannot just justify house salaries while presiding over a system where apartments sit empty in the middle of a housing crisis. You cannot call it leadership when developments are deteriorating and residents are living in fear. You cannot continue to ask NYCHA residents to be patient while they have already been waiting for years. This is not about personal attacks. It's about accountability. Because any other system, public or private, if you fail at the core mission, there are consequences. But in NYCHA, it seems like failure is tolerated, and residents are the ones who pay the price. This has to end, and it has to end now. How long have these vacant apartments will remain empty? What repairs are needed? Who is responsible for the delay? We need to be able to have some real deadlines and real accountability from the top on down. If these repairs need to happen, then these apartment needs to be filled immediately. Residents of NYCHA do matter. They matter as a result of any other New Yorker. They deserve safe housing. They deserve dignity. They deserve respect. And as of right now, they're not getting it because vacant apartments is a housing crisis, is not bad policy, it's a moral disgrace. Every empty apartment is a broken promise. Every delayed decision and every day without action fails the people. So I'll close with this. NYCHA does not have a shortage of buildings. It does not have a shortage of need. What is it? It have a shortage of accountability. And NYCHA need to be able to stop doing things for optics. You want to talk about scaffolding that's inside. You get happy because scaffolding is being taken down while vacant apartments are not being filled. We have to be able to understand these issues. We have to understand that we have to stand on principle. There was a man by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King who stood on this nation and declared that housing was not just a structure, but it was right tied to dignity, justice, and humanity. He marched not just for the right to vote, but for the right to live somewhere safe. He marched for fair housing in cities that shut doors on our people. And out of that struggle was the Fair Housing Act of 1968, a promise that this country would no longer tolerate discrimination on how they live. But I stand here today that promise has not been fulfilled by NYCHA. We're not just dealing with discrimination, we're dealing with abandonment. We're dealing with a system that has turned its backs on this very people that was meant to protect. So when you talk about Dr. King, that's the dream that he spoke of. But today in NYCHA, we are living in a nightmare deferred. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Turn on the mic.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Christina Chase. You may know me as an advocacy coordinator at Take Root Justice or as part of my community board in Queens, but I'm here specifically and only to represent myself and the Ravenswood Resident Association, where I serve as second vice president. First and foremost, the DOI report, the real crime is not this, few hundred people who took over vacant apartments. The real crime is the 6,000 to 7,000 vacant units that are sitting there in the first place, especially when we just experienced a winter where people died because they had nowhere to go. So I'm not necessarily here to criminalize those folks, although we do need structures of accountability and security measures to be addressed. I'm here just to really share what's happening at Ravenswood and just in my own experience as a board member. First, I signed up for a resident watch years ago. I have not received a word. I've been waiting, not a word. I looked at the committee report and resident watch is mentioned as if it's something that's functioning and working, but it's not, and it hasn't for years. So that can't be a resolution, especially if resident engagement isn't even doing the support it's supposed to for the TAs to organize and coordinate the resident watch. So that's not even an avenue that's real and happening. And please, if anyone else has a contrary, experience, please tell me. But my resident watch has not been working for years. But moreover, because there's no resident watch, there's no avenue for residents to report what's happening. It's only up to employees. And so if we tell someone, there's no guarantee that they're even going to bring it to management. But moreover, there's no paper trail for us to ensure that our report is even going to be recognized and investigated. I myself, on my own building, on my own floor, have witnessed a tenant be abused and assaulted and pushed out of her own home. And now her apartment someone else is living in there. And I know he's not on the lease, excuse me. I witnessed the assault. There's no security. And I know that he's not on the lease, and I don't even know where she is. Excuse me. But it's just mind-boggling to me. And I know how he came in. You know how he came in? He broke the door. He opened the door, and my lobby door was been broken for months. And the fact that we don't have secure doors, we don't, even our back door is always propped open for the workers or even for the tenants themselves. There's no real security. And the fact that someone can be scared out of their own home, I have no idea where she is. I don't even know if she's alive. Excuse me. So it's real. And that's not even to mention the strangers that I've literally slept in front of my door on the floor, in front of the elevator, in the staircase. And I don't want to come for them because they need a home. Everyone deserves a home, but there's no security. If anyone can just waltz in, you can come to my building right now and walk through the back door. It's propped wide open. Even if I move the rock that someone put there, it's just going to be propped open again. Thank you. But it's real. And the fact of the matter is, I'm told by management to call NYPD. I call NYPD when he's banging on the door. By the time they come, they're gone. They told me to tell NYCHA. There's a back and forth of people pointing fingers, and there's no accountability. Excuse me, just to go back to my notes. Moreover, as a TA member, resident engagement is so disorganized and so messed up that we've had, in my 4 years, we've had at least 4 coordinators. Turnover is so high that we can't even get the work done and the support we need. And because of that, every TA I know has had terrible elections. I don't know one board who's had an efficient, smooth election. I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just that terribly organized, which is really hard to believe. But we don't have that support, and the RAs are being disenfranchised as we speak. We're still having difficulty getting a few members on our board. Our district council of presidents has not met in over a year, or maybe even 2 at this point. So I can't even find out what's going on at the other TAs in Queens. But again, because of that, there's no way to create the structures of accountability we need for NYCHA to ensure the security measures are there. And it's mind-boggling to me that the report, both DOI and the committee report, didn't include, hey, why don't we ensure that lobby doors lock and stay locked? Why don't we ensure that all the back doors are propped? Why don't we ensure that all tenants have keys that are obviously on the lease so that they don't have to break the door in the first place? None of those were included. And lastly, it's mind-boggling to me to see hundreds of millions of dollars being earmarked for PACT and other Section 18 conversions when those are the same millions of dollars that can go to these vacant apartments in the first place. And then I'd be remiss to mention that a lot of our nonprofit service providers aren't really doing the programming that we need when it comes to creating a culture of safety that police cannot and will never be able to offer. And that comes with workshops on intimate partner violence, learning how to navigate when you had an assault, all the kinds of programming to ensure real community safety that NYPD will never be able to provide. We need that back. We don't have that anymore. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and that concludes this pre-panel. Next, we will have testimony from NYCHA, and I'll turn it over to the committee counsel to give the affirmation. And also, too, we've been joined by Councilmember Rassler and also Councilmember Mealy, who stepped out, but she'll be back.
Good morning. If you all could please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? And if you could just state your name and title before beginning. Thank you.
I'm Deputy Chief Bill Gallagher, Commanding Officer, NYPD Legal. Daniel Kiss, Deputy General Counsel for Housing Litigation in New York City Housing Authority.
Daniel Green, Executive Vice President for Property Management Operations for New York City Housing Authority.
You may begin your testimony.
Chair Chris Banks, members of the Committee on Public Housing, and other distinguished members of the City Council, NYCHA residents, community advocates, and members of the public. Good morning. I am Daniel Green, NYCHA's Executive Vice President of Property Management Operations. I am pleased to be joined by Deputy General Counsel Dan Kiss and also Chief Gallagher. NYCHA is a vital resource of affordable housing in our city, and we strive to ensure that as many New Yorkers as possible can benefit from safe, stable, and truly affordable homes. At the same time, the community's safety and well-being is another top priority, which drives our work. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss NYCHA's collaboration with our law enforcement partners to promote security around vacant apartments, which we have made progress with in recent years, as well as our efforts to turn over apartments as expeditiously as possible to provide residents with safe and healthy homes. A key indicator of our progress in this area is that we have increased the number of move-ins by 76% since 2023. As a landlord, our ultimate goal is to provide safe and secure homes for the hundreds of thousands of families we serve. Our approach to promoting safe communities is multifaceted. It involves three core elements: investing in infrastructure that enhances building security, such as CCTV cameras, exterior lighting, and layered access controls at building entrances; collaborating with law enforcement agencies such as NYPD, the New York City Department of Investigation, or DOI, local district attorney offices, and the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice; and partnering with residents through initiatives such as Resident Watch to collaboratively address public safety. Over 1,100 residents participate in the Volunteer Resident Watch program, helping to patrol their developments and foster safety, security, and community pride in collaboration with property management staff. And NYCHA, including our Office of Safety and Security, is in constant communication with NYPD. 9 dedicated NYPD police service areas, or PSAs, cover NYCHA developments. Additionally, more than 21,000 CCTV cameras are installed at NYCHA developments citywide. We have taken significant steps in recent years to ensure safety around our vacant apartments, and we have been working with our law enforcement partners, including the DOI and NYPD, for the past several years to address security concerns. In fact, DOI's recent report on vacant apartments resulted from this partnership. Much of its data collected during the course of our work together. And thanks to this close working relationship between NYPD's Housing Bureau's Reclamation Unit, or the HBRU, and NYCHA's Law Department and Property Management, about 635 vacant apartments have been recovered from unauthorized occupants since 2023. We acknowledge that there is always more to do and more measures to take. And so we have accepted all 5 of the recommendations outlined in the DOI report. And we will continue to work with DOI and NYPD to foster safety and security for the entire community. The DOI recommendations that we will implement involve conducting monthly inspections of vacant apartments, evaluating the feasibility of alternate lock sets or security technologies, requiring resident watch volunteers to report suspected unauthorized inhabitants or illegal activities, immediate verification by property management of any such reports from resident watch, and finally, deploying additional funding we receive to reduce the time it takes to refurbish vacant apartments. I'd like to now provide some clarity on why there are vacant apartments at NYCHA, as well as our efforts to turn over apartments that are safe and free of environmental hazards as quickly as possible. Out of NYCHA's approximately 146,000 public housing apartments, there are currently 6,294 vacant apartments as of the time of this testimony, with turnover in progress, plus 612 units that are matched, meaning that a new resident has been selected for them. This equates to a 4.7% vacancy rate, which is lower than the national public housing vacancy rate of 6.06%. NYCHA has substantially increased the number of move-ins. In 2025, there were 4,702 move-ins into the apartments, which represents a 76% increase over 2023, just 2 years ago. And we have reduced the time it takes to turn over a vacant apartment, which is currently 340 days, down from 395 days in March 2025. Despite the lack of federal support and the need to constantly balance competing priorities, we do prioritize apartment turnover work. And in doing so, we have truly made strides to foster safety and healthy communities by addressing, for instance, the long entrenched issue of lead-based paint in our units. The turnover work includes the full removal of environmental hazards like lead and asbestos, as well as the completion of vital repairs and renovations after a tenant leaves. Residents stay in their NYCHA apartments for an average of 25 years. So apartment turnover is a key and necessary opportunity to complete the critical and required health and safety work in the apartment, as well as the skilled trade work, which is done by NYCHA staff, such as carpentry, plastering, and painting. And the work needed is usually considerable. The total capital needs across NYCHA's portfolio amount to approximately $80 billion. It takes up to 6 months to get an apartment ready for a new tenant. Local Law 1 requires landlords to perform lead abatement of certain components upon apartment turnover, but we go even further. NYCHA's policy is to abate all components to make an apartment lead-free for the next resident, based on New York City's strict lead paint standard. When an apartment turns over, we conduct a lead inspection if an apartment hasn't already been inspected for lead, and if lead paint is identified, the apartment is then scheduled for abatement. Additionally, asbestos investigation is performed at apartments with damaged floor tiles, or textured ceilings. Compliance with a variety of lead and asbestos abatement-related requirements and regulations is not only time-consuming, but it is also costly. The average cost to turn over an apartment is about $52,000, $25,000 for asbestos abatement, $17,000 for lead abatement, and about $10,000, give or take, for general renovations. However, the time and the cost involved in apartment turnover means that every resident who will move into a refreshed apartment that is safe and free of environmental hazards. Another reason for vacancies is that we fulfill thousands of resident requests each year to transfer to another apartment for a variety of reasons, including domestic violence and other emergency situations. On average, nearly 60% of our move-ins each year are from transfers. So, in those cases, another apartment becomes vacant every time a resident transfers. In addition, some apartments are held for residents who need to temporarily relocate when their apartments undergo major renovation and modernization work. That is, our efforts to invest in, strengthen, and preserve our buildings and improve residents' quality of life. We continue to work with our partners in all levels of government to obtain every available resource to get New Yorkers into our deeply affordable apartments. We appreciate the city's ongoing support, including its funding for the Vacant Unit Readiness Program. The city has made over $222 million available to NYCHA for this program for fiscal years 2026 through 2030. All of our work is driven by our mission to provide safe homes and foster safe communities. While the obstacles are many, we are making progress thanks to the partners at DOI, NYPD, and the City Council. We appreciate our collaboration and are always looking at ways we can continue to transform it as an organization and better serve New Yorkers in New York City. Thank you, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. First of all, let me just begin with a question. uh, directly towards the statements you made about the $80 billion capital need for NYCHA. With the conversion of already 27,000 to close to 30-some thousand units over to RadPack, why hasn't the capital needs been decreased? And is it currently still at $80 billion based off of the testimony you gave?
So, fair. Thank you, council member, for that question. Excuse me, Chair. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Thank you for that question. I can't answer that today, but we will get that information.
Yeah,
and bring that to you.
we've been asking that question, and it seems like we get the same response. We don't have the information, and that to me is fundamentally irresponsible. When we're talking about the need for public housing, when this administration has just turned over close to 600 million to privatize, continue the privatization of public housing, and we don't have a inkling or a thought of what the capital needs are currently, and this number is constantly thrown out. For the last 3 years, it's been thrown out. And we've been converting developments. How long, Brian, you can answer this.
Sure.
How long have we been converting developments? When was the first development converted?
First development was converted in 2017.
2017. No, sorry. Let him, please. Thank you.
Let you get right back to the answer, but please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been converting developments since
2017.
2017. We've converted now.
How many years has that been since to now, 2026?
So we're 9 years. We're close to 10.
9 years
Right,
since 2017. Now in 2026.
That's right.
How many NYCHA developments have been converted, and how many units have been converted?
So we're about 30,000 units converted, with another 10,000 in the pipeline.
So with those conversions, why hasn't there been a accurate accounting for the deduction in capital needs? And you continue to give this $80 billion capital need.
Yep. So the P&A is done every 5 years. We will have another one coming out soon enough. Time goes fast. And because the last one came out in 2023. The good news is, and we'd be happy to brief the committee on this with a capital T. And the good news is the number is starting to flatten off, which is good. And that is, number one, the investments that we have, to the core pillar areas is showing results. The also the local funding that we're getting, both from the city and both from the state, is also unprecedented and also paying off. But these conversions are also having a tremendous impact. Every time we're taking a development off of the Section 9 and onto Section 8, it does reduce the number. But we've
So would that mean there would be more monies to capital monies now to then invest in public housing?
No, unfortunately not, because
But there's no profit. NYCHA has no profit. It's neutral.
No, RAD was set up to be a cost neutral program. So what happens is that eventually, after the first year, the subsidy for those developments no longer goes to NYCHA, so they don't get capital funding, for those developments. So there is a decrease in funding.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can get an accurate accounting.
We definitely
what
could.
that
I'd be
number
happy
looks
to
like.
set up.
And at our next public hearing, we're not getting the 80 billion, and the next 5 years down the road, we're not getting the same 80 billion.
It's tough because it's not a static number too. We've also seen tremendous increases with inflation, tremendous increases with tariffs.
Okay, so if that's the case, all we're asking is for you to be transparent to the residents and to this committee.
Yep.
Give us accurate information.
Happy to do so, and always.
So we look forward to getting that information from the authority. Okay, let me get to vacancies directly. I know you stated the number of current vacancy units at 6,294. Does this include the vacant units that are permanently off the rent roll?
It does not. That includes the units that are under turnover, that are vacant available, and that we're going to turn over and make available for a new resident.
So how many units are permanently off the rent roll?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. Just give me a moment. I'll get you that answer. Okay, so permanent off the rent roll is, as of today, is 1447, and I can give you a breakdown of the categories that those are in.
Yeah, if you can give us a breakdown, I greatly appreciate it. And all these units off the rent roll, are they uninhabitable?
So I
being
have
used
a-
for
I have a-
administrative purposes?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. I didn't mean to speak over you. I'll give you a line-by-line breakdown right now. Okay, so 52 units are off the rent roll due to the building being vacated. 767 are building being vacated for PAC conversion. 271 conversion to a smaller unit or a larger unit, meaning that the unit's being reconfigured. 114 are NYCHA management offices and have long been NYCHA management offices. 93 are other program centers, so other community type of facilities. 79 are for resident association use. We provide our tenant associations with an office, and many times that is an apartment that we convert to an office.
And the administrative purposes?
I don't have a breakdown each one, but it could be another community need or another any other community purpose that we would put towards that unit.
Has NYCHA done an evaluation of whether these off the rent roll units can be returned back to the housing stock?
Let me just finish the categories and I'll answer your question, if that's okay, because there's a couple more other that
Yes,
you might have
go ahead.
questions about. 52 are listed as uninhabitable and cannot be rehabilitated. Mainly those would consist of like basement apartments and things that that we wouldn't recommend and are really just dilapidated. And 19 are for what they call viper rooms or law enforcement purposes.
Okay.
And these have to be approved by HUD before we remove from permanently off the rent roll.
And for administrative purposes?
I'd have to get a council a follow up on the other program center designation, like a breakdown of what those units are and what they would be used for. But it would be for an approved community purpose that we would have to take.
And has there been an evaluation done for these off the rent roll units to be returned back to the housing stock?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. Not to my knowledge, not like comprehensively. We have looked at certain office spaces that we might be able to turn back, like on an individualistic basis, but not.
You say office spaces, not the tenant association office.
No, like
these are
outmoded. Yeah, where somebody might have left it, like where an organization, for example, I was at one in Jefferson recently, where an organization had stopped operating there and had stopped using those offices, and we were considering converting them back into apartments. So. On a case-by-case basis, yes, we do a reevaluation in operations, but we have not done like a comprehensive reevaluation of
Well,
these
we
units.
appreciate if you do a comprehensive reevaluation.
Understood, sir.
Per NYCHA's data, the average turnover duration peaked at 425 days in August of 2024 and was 376 days in May of 2025. What is the current average turnover time, and what is NYCHA's target timeline for turnover completion?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. So the current time is 340 days. Our target is to get it under 300 days, and we are on the trend to do that. We've reduced it from over 400 days just last year down to now down to the 340 days. We're targeting units that have been vacant older. I think the most important thing to understand with vacant units, and that I just want to get out here today, is this is not a static universe. The way that I feel it sometimes talked about is that these are the same 6,300 units sitting there. They are not. It is a dynamic universe where every month hundreds are rented up, hundreds more become vacant, and we're in a constant cycle. We work 7 days a week to turn over vacant units with our in-house trades. with funding provided by the city to turn over
But
vacant.
but it is your testimony that the 6,294 vacant units. That's an accurate number.
Yeah, it goes up and down from day to day. Every day it's
So
different. It's
you
a
re-
dynamic number. Yeah.
So is this an accurate number as of today then? You
I
came
didn't check the
prepared
number
to
this morning. I
committee
didn't
to
check
give
the morning.
testimony,
It's
so I would
accurate.
hope that
I would say it's accurate number as of the past couple weeks. Yes,
within the
it
past
changes
couple
every day. It changes every day. Yeah.
Okay. What is the current average turnover time, and what is NYCHA's targeted time for turnover completion?
Thank you, Chair. So again, it's 340 days is our current time, and our goal is to get it below 300 days.
And approximately 60% of NYCHA move-ins are resident transfers, and meaning a move-in generates a new vacancy 60% of the time. How many of the transfers generated vacancies were created in 2025?
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me a moment. I'll pull those numbers out. I just want to give you an accurate breakdown. So the number of new admissions was, so this is a new person coming into NYCHA, was 1,916, with 1,008 of those were from the DHS referral program.
Okay,
And then
go ahead. I'm going to ask another question. Then you could finish your statement.
Yeah, I'll just give you the transfer number. So the transfer number last year was 2,751.
2751. Okay, and how many of those? Okay, and we got that answered. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Ressler, and then I'll come back to my line of questioning. Councilmember.
Really appreciate it, Chair Banks, and I want to thank the NYCHA tenants for their compelling testimony today about the real-world implications on safety when we fail to renovate NYCHA apartments. 3 years ago, I've been raising this issue at Public Housing Committee hearings for about 4 years. 3 years ago, I appeared on Errol Lewis to highlight that we'd seen an explosion in NYCHA vacancies under Eric Adams. You know, when Mayor Adams came into office, there were hundreds of vacancies. Back then, there were 4,000 vacancies. Today, there's almost 6,300 vacancies. We continue to absolutely fail on this. It is an utter disgrace that we have so many vacant NYCHA apartments, and this issue continues to get worse. I am incredibly disappointed in the Housing Authority and, frankly, in city government over this 4-year period for caring so little about maximizing the most precious of resources, our affordable housing. The 12-fold increase, the 1,200% increase in vacant NYCHA apartments under Eric Adams is one of perhaps the single most compelling statistics that demonstrates the utter management failure of his administration. And that is really quite a statement considering what an abomination of an administration it was. With that, with the $222 million in capital funding that's available to NYCHA to repair these apartments, firstly, does NYCHA expect to spend the full $222 million?
Absolutely.
This year, at the end of this fiscal year, 3 months from now, how many vacant apartments will there be, and how many vacant apartments will there be at the end of next fiscal year with the funding you have available?
Thank you, Council Member, for your question. So I will give you a target for what our production rate is, which I measure. The most important statistic for me is how many units I'm completing each month and how many people I'm moving into those new lead-free apartments at each and every month. So our goal is to complete approximately 580 apartments per month, and then to rent more than 400 apartments per month. We want to we want to definitely match our number.
Pause you
Yes,
for a
sir.
second. So your goal is to renovate 580 apartments per month. Before we even talk about how many new vacant apartments happen each and every month, your goal is over a 12-month period to conceivably renovate all of the vacant apartments that are vacant today. It will take you 12 months to renovate every apartment that is vacant as of today. If you're doing 580 a month, multiply that by 10, it's 5,800, 11 months, excuse me, I overstated it. Is that right?
Yeah, so yes,
No, it's a little more nuanced than that.
that is
Some
our
are-
target every single month that we review every single day.
You hitting that
Yes.
target on a monthly
Yes,
basis?
yes, we are.
Okay, so 11 months. What resource constraints do you have? If you had a magic wand and Chair Banks were to come down from on high and solve all your problems, how could you speed that up? If expense dollars were available to you on these repairs, if there were other agency resources that were available on these repairs, how could you go, what would it take for you to go faster, for you to increase that 580 number to 1,000, to do 1,000 apartments a month?
Yeah, thank you, council member, for that question. It's an important question. So over the city began giving us expense funding approximately 2 years ago, which we immediately deployed to pay for overtime and materials.
So the $222 million that's available for NYCHA vacancy renovations is on the capital side. What's available to you on the expense side?
Just pause for a moment. Okay. Let me pause for a moment and just grab that number for you.
Well, come back to me. Why don't you answer my question?
Yeah.
If we could come down on high and Chair Banks waved his magic wand, how could we go faster?
We want to see the funding sustained that covers both the expense and the capital side, because both funding sources are important in two respects. There was some statements that I just want to respond to. We use our trades. The best people for turning over NYCHA apartments who do it the fastest and the least most cost effective is the NYCHA trades. So we need to keep those expense dollars coming in to cover our overtime costs, because we work 7 days a week on vacant apartments to hit those high numbers that we're hitting each month. On the capital side, I need money for asbestos abatement and continued lead abatement.
Could you provide a proposal to the city council of what it would take resource-wise, expense and capital, for you to do 1,000 apartments a month?
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. Yes, we could provide that. Yes.
Okay, because that to me is the minimum that we should be absolutely doing. You're saying today it's going to take 11 months to repair all the vacant apartments that we have today. We know there are more apartments that become vacant every single day with turnover that exists in the NYCHA community. And we need these apartments for emergency transfers. We need these apartments to move people out of shelters. We need these apartments for the folks who have been desperately waiting on the waiting list for decades. You spoke eloquently to the 1,447 units off the rent rolls. Is my last question, Chair Banks. I really appreciate it. Non-dwelling units. My understanding is that in addition to the 1,447 that are off the rent rolls, the 6,294 that are vacant, there's 1,366 that are classified as non-dwelling units. Excuse me. There are 306, I missed it. At the start of the Adams administration, there were 1,362 units that were classified as non-dwelling units. As of February, a few months ago, there were 3,662, almost a threefold increase. Could you clarify what is the state of these units? You broke down the 1,447 off the rent rolls. Can you similarly explain the 3,662 non-dwelling units separate and apart from the vacant apartments? You look confused.
I'm sorry if I look confused. No. I apologize. So, Councilmember, I want to just go over the numbers again, because I want to make sure that I cover all of it and be complete and transparent and accurate. So there's two categories of off-rent roll. There's permanently off-rent roll, and then there's temporary off-rent roll. So I think the number, I'm not familiar with the number that you stated, at least in the way that you phrased it. In terms of the temporary off the rent roll, I gave the breakdown for the permanent. I'll give you the breakdown for the temporary. So there are 2,280 temporary off the rent roll units. So what those are, there's 35 that have been taken off the rent roll due to a fire, really fire apartments. 279 are held for major modernization or relocation, such as like a project like Gowanus, the comprehensive modernization of Gowanus. Hospitality apartments are 508. Critical part of the other piece of vacant apartments. Yeah, so we have been doing in the past few years more serious repairs than we have in a very long time. We do asbestos abatement in occupied apartments, we do lead abatement in occupied apartments, and we do major rehabilitations of uninhabitable apartments. So to do those repairs safely, what we do is we've initiated a major relocation program across NYCHA on a unit by unit basis, so that if you want your apartment fully rehabbed and you live in an uninhabitable condition, we will relocate you to a hospitality unit, we will redo your apartment, and we will move you home. It has been transformative because what we are doing now is getting more major work done for people who have been waiting, and it's been a very successful program. We also do use hotels as well for that program, yes. But sometimes the repairs are going to take more than like a couple weeks, so we want to really somebody to be comfortable. So that would be our hospitality unit universe, which is another critical part of vacant apartment management that doesn't get talked a lot about, which is we turn over a certain number of apartments per month, but if somebody needs major work done, those units, we need to transfer that person immediately into that, and we need to convert it to a hospitality unit so that person can get repaired.
Next category.
Sorry, my apologies. Okay, so major modernization not funded and cannot be rented is 23. Major modernization funded is 477. Natural disaster is 7. Other major modernization relocation is 10. Other major modernization required funded is 108. Police, there's certain that are sealed due to an investigation, are only 2. 504 for disability modification is 49 for section 504. 479 for our trust relocation site for our trust program, and then 308 are at a trust site and are being held for that major modernization at that site.
Okay. So just to be clear, it sounds like we've got about 2,230 temporarily off the rent rolls, 1,447 that are permanently off the rent rolls. That combined is the figure that I was referring to, the non-dwelling units. It's on the NYCHA website.
That's correct, sir.
So, and that's in addition to the 6,300 nearly vacant NYCHA apartments. So almost 10,000 units. Not all of them can be habitable, but most of them can be. And we've got a lot of work to do to actually make them habitable. I think one of the core things I'm going to be judging the Mamdani administration on is how quickly they fill these units. And we have so much work to do. Please get us that proposal for how to do 1,000 a month as quickly as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Encarnacion. You want to?
Thank you, Chair. First I want to acknowledge and thank the pre-panelists for their testimony. I unfortunately have heard their testimonies over and over again during my time working for the council. In your testimony, you all mentioned that you are accepting all 5 of DOI's proposals and suggestions. So I have some rapid fire questions around that. The first one, in conducting monthly inspections, who exactly is conducting them, and when will they begin, roughly around?
Thank you, Council Member, for that question. They will be conducted by our superintendents and assistant superintendents. They are beginning this month, and so this will be the first month of reporting under the new program.
And they'll be reporting to you every month, and then and will that report be made available to the public? Will you be reporting it to any other agencies at quarterly, or where will this report live?
Thank you, Councilman, for that question. It's certainly something that we would be happy to make public. For the first month, we're just right now putting it together. And to be clear, I think the DOI recommendation said that we were going to implement it in a year. I want to be clear what that is. So we're going to implement like an interim program, that will track it, but we want to move to like our work order system in Maximo, which requires a little bit more of a complex IT build out. So that will be what we're working on, but we're going to start the inspections themselves and the reporting. But yes, we will be happy to share that information with the council or any member who requests it.
And the inspection means they're going in, they're looking, making sure it's locked, they're making sure no one's in it, the whole shebang, right? That's essentially what an inspection means for those units?
Yes, Council Member, and I can actually read to you what they're going to inspect. And I want to be clear, like we inspect our units for a variety of things. We have dozens of different types of inspections that we do, and we already do have vacant unit inspections for repairs. We're also starting one to ensure that there's no active leaks or problems in them while they're vacant. This will be especially to ensure the unit is secured. So what we're going to look into is to see ensure that the door is locked and secured and not damaged. We're going to ensure there's no evidence of any trespass or of individuals improperly inside the unit. We're going to ensure that the door is secured with a proper move-out cylinder and not a 65 key or a hasp or padlock. We're going to ensure the windows are secured. That's another method of breaking and entering is through windows. If the door or lock requires repairs, the superintendent or assistant superintendent must immediately create the work order, which we create our work orders on our phones in order to address the deficiency. That would be an emergency repair. If a unit shows signs of active trespass, staff are directed to immediately contact 911 to have any unauthorized individuals removed, which I want to be clear is our existing practice. We're just reiterating it to staff. If a unit shows signs of previous trespass, replace the cylinder with a new move-out cylinder, and if warranted, take additional steps to secure the unit. And if individuals in the apartment are not removed immediately, property managers must contact the NYCHA Law Department through our data sharing platform that we use, and then the NYCHA Law Department will provide guidance on next steps. And in all events, we must notify our emergency team, our Office of Safety and Security, and our senior management team.
Okay, and I understand that you feel that, these inspections have been done. I myself have walked through the NYCHA developments. Some of those doors are wide open. You knock on them, you can tell that they've been manipulated, and so I'm glad that this will be happening now every month in the details that you've presented. You also mentioned that you were going to be requiring resident watch volunteers to report certain things, and I wanted to know how you can require volunteers and not necessarily staff to do some of this reporting. Like, it would make more sense that you require staff to do something and not volunteers. I've had many developments that, unfortunately, volunteers, resident association presidents have been attacked by other residents. It's not safe in order to, to use them as a vehicle to do things. So I'm trying to figure out that piece.
Thank you, Councilmember, for the question. I'm going to answer the second part, and then I'm going to ask my colleague, Mr. James Secreto, to join to talk about Resident Watch. Our staff absolutely are required to report this. In fact, every day, our caretakers who do the janitorial tasks have a daily checklist. Our supervisors of caretakers have to do monthly inspections, which are all automated and available to review, to look at all issues, including door security, including rear door security. And every day we have staff walking our buildings, and they're absolutely 100% required to report immediately to EMSD, to our emergency department, if they see any issue, and they're directed to call 911. So they absolutely bear the obligation, the first and foremost obligation, to report this. And we've reiterated that in this most recent directive.
So if they see in a condition, these people that are walking around the buildings, if they see a condition, they are then reporting it through the app themselves, is what you're saying? They're creating a work order.
Yes. Yes,
So there's often, okay, because many times our staff has created work orders that have not existed. They're seeing conditions when they're going into the buildings, and those work orders aren't in the system already. So that means to me that people aren't reporting. These staff that you say are walking through the hallways, they're not reporting the conditions. We have ceilings in the hallways that are falling apart, leaks in the buildings, hallways with people in them. Like, these things are daily occurrences in the NYCHA developments that we have. So I'm assuming that those tickets aren't being created, which means that those people aren't walking around the neighborhoods, walking around the floors.
Thank you, Council Member, for that statement, for that question. We do have tracking of every single one. So if there's a particular development that you'd like to see the tracking, I'd be happy to sit down with you or your staff to show you the tracking tools and down but to the work order level. I do want to also note, I do want to just speak on behalf of our staff. In the past 2 years, we get subject to an independent HUD inspection every single year at each of our properties. In the last year alone, we passed the vast majority of those inspections through HUD and through their independent REACT team under the stricter Inspire standards that were adopted by the last administration. So we are seeing improving scores, and we are messaging to our staff the importance of reporting not only problems in common areas, but we've also started this program this year called Maintenance Cares, where right now we're inspecting 100% of our apartments every single year. We're entering the third year of 100% apartment inspections. We are now requiring our maintenance workers to escalate any uninhabitable conditions directly to me and to my staff, so that we can immediately deploy skilled trade resources to help assist residents living in uninhabitable conditions. We've already addressed approximately about 775 of those uninhabitable apartments in just the first year alone, and we are pushing our maintenance workers through literature, through posters, to report uninhabitable conditions in our apartments so that we can achieve better conditions for our residents. We are also, you mentioned leaks. We are also rolling out this year with our federal oversight team, in Baez, a new leak standard procedure with better technology, better tracking of leaks to improve leak response. Our pipes are very old; they're degraded. That's our, whatever the P&A number is, we definitely need more money for plumbing. And that is something that we are trying to do better. So we are seeing improvements, but if there's a particular building or development that you'd like us to look at our monthly inspections, I'd be happy to walk through them with your staff.
I would love that because I don't think it translates to the people on the ground. It really just doesn't, and we get calls all the time. And I'm really glad that you're seeing some improvement in your numbers, but the tenants in my developments are not seeing improvement in their quality of life. And so it's just a tale of two stories. And there's some things that NYCHA gets right, but in very serious situations like safety, we want to make sure it always gets it right, and not just sometimes. So
Thank you, Councilmember. I agree.
thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let me get back to my line of questioning, and particularly dealing with the turnover costs and funding and overtime. At a June 2025 Public Housing Committee hearing, NYCHA stated that most of the vacancy turnover repair work relied on overtime. How much did NYCHA spend on turnover-related overtime for 2025? And what percentage of this work relies on overtime labor?
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. If you just bear with me a moment, I have that number in my materials. I just need
Okay,
to.
I'll give you as much time as you need. How much did they spend in 2025? And what percentage of this work relies on overtime labor? I mean, if you don't have the information, it's
I do have the information. I'm just trying to make sure I give you the right number on the
Okay.
record. So. You know what? I'll look for it, and we'll provide that follow up. I'm gonna. It wasn't here. Let me get that answer accurate for you, Councilmember.
Do you have any data on?
Yes, yes, we do.
I don't know if I should ask further questions on this topic. I don't think you're prepared.
Okay, so yeah, I have it right here. I'm gonna give you an answer.
I mean, we got a lot of NYCHA staff here, and we don't have proper data that's needed. But we'll you have it, so we'll hopefully we'll get that. But I'll ask the question for the record. I'll go on to the next question, and if you don't have the information, please, we'll definitely look forward to getting that question, these questions answered. How many additional skilled trades positions would NYCHA need to add to perform the same volume of work without relying on overtime, and what would the annual cost be?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
How many additional, this is in relation to the overtime, how many additional skilled trade positions would NYCHA need to add to perform the same volume of work without relying on overtime, and what would the annual cost be? It's related to.
So last year, so last year we spent $122 million on vacant apartment turnover.
Okay.
And that was, so in a significant portion of that was with overtime. I would say I don't have the number of what would it take to replace all the staff. I don't know if that would be a cost savings because that's bringing in new staff, so that's new fringe on top of that. So I don't have that cost comparative of what it would take to bring in all those new staff. But I can tell you in my experience here, using the skilled trade overtime is the most. We've done analysis of that. It is more cost effective than using vendors. It is significantly less costly than using vendors. Our skilled trade staff also, especially in terms of the plaster trade, have the most significant experience. One of the most difficult parts of unit turnover at NYCHA is the plastering. The plastering at NYCHA is like no other plastering in the private industry. We do not use a lot of sheetrock. This trade is really just building walls from the ground up using old practices. It's a very difficult trade to hire for. We actually have had more success in recent years. We've started a plaster academy to train in-house staff and more plastering. But that trade there, you really can't supplement with vendors, and it's hard to hire significantly more given the sort of rarity of that trade. But that is one of our number one challenges with turnovers is that plastering trade, because the same plasterers are also doing work in occupied units. Now you might then ask, well, why don't you create a specific team for the vacant apartments? Well, that was tried actually, and actually did not work. The best way to do it is to have the same people at the developments continue to work on vacant apartments. If like an appointment gets canceled, they can go directly into a vacant apartment and begin the work on their normal shift. But we want a high number. So we have relied a lot on overtime. It allows us to work 7 days a week also on these turnovers, which is critical to keep up the high number. So 122 is the 122 million is our overall number. I'll get you a breakdown on on what that was overtime. And I apologize for not having that.
It's okay. We'll wait for your response on those questions, and we'll actually now I'll get this question out. Has NYCHA held any discussions with unions regarding potential reclassification of these skilled trade positions from hourly to salary status? If you can get that information to us, we appreciate it. Okay. Let me move on to the next question. DOI report frames vacant NYCHA apartments as a significant public safety risk. The report documented trespassing, gang activity, narcotic storage, weapon recovery, and at least one homicide that occurred in vacant units. How much does NYCHA spend annually on security at NYCHA developments, including NYPD Housing Bureau resources dedicated to NYCHA properties, the Housing Bureau Reclamation Unit, and NYCHA's own Office of Safety and Security, and any private security or surveillance contracts?
I can give you the number for the Office of Safety and Security. I cannot speak to the NYPD's own budget. We have NYPD here on the dais with us, who can speak to their.
So you have for the NYCHA. Okay, you have for NYCHA, NYPD. You don't have the numbers for NYPD Housing Bureau resources. We don't.
We have NYPD on the dais.
Is PD here?
Yeah,
Yes,
how you
sir.
doing?
Oh, so there we go. You can answer that question.
I am. I can tell you that in the Housing Bureau Reclamation Unit, we have 1 sergeant and 5 detectives. That is our personnel requirements for housing reclamation. As far as the actual number of total officers assigned to Housing Bureau in general, I don't have that, but I can easily get that for you.
Please. I would hope that y'all would have came prepared today for that, but yes.
I do have the number for overtime. I just couldn't find it in that spreadsheet.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm not a spreadsheet guy, so I do apologize.
It's okay. For the record,
the amount that we spent on overtime was $50 million.
$50 million on overtime. Okay. All right. In theory, fewer vacant units would mean fewer opportunities for trespassing, illegal occupancy, and criminal activity that the DOI documented. Has the city ever evaluated whether redirecting a portion of the security spending to accelerate vacant unit rehabilitation, and that would produce better public safety for the residents?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. The city has dedicated significant resources and continues to dedicate significant resources to help us increase the turnover time. In fact, the funding that the city and the council provided to us enabled us to dramatically increase the move-ins by that 76%, and also the flexibility to use that money for overtime, materials, and critical environmental costs. The issue of rededicating critical safety and security money, no, I'm not aware of that. Right. But that's we want to make sure that money is also preserved for safety and security for CCTV cameras and other critical programs for resident safety.
And has NYCHA pushed the city, the state, to increase budget allocations for the vacant unit readiness program?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. Yes, we have. We've secured another $222 million through the city for the next through 2030. And in addition, the state has allocated $25 million that will enable us to continue the critical environmental work in these vacant units.
The New York State budget is in the final stage of negotiations in Albany. Has NYCHA received any indication, formally or informally, that the state plans to provide funding to NYCHA? Any funding, and has there been any mention of any funding to rehabilitate the vacant units?
Thank you, Chairman. Defer to Mr. Honan, who's directly involved in that.
Sure. We've spent a lot of time in Albany advocating for residents. In the Assembly budget, there is $750 million proposed for capital. In the Senate budget, there is $500 million. So we do feel like we're in good place with both the legislature. Also very exciting this year, there was a $100 million proposal in the Assembly budget for expense dollars. The first time I've seen this in a long time. It is 60 million of that would go towards Michelamas, which badly needed, and also 40 million for NYCHA. It is something that we just recently met with the chair of Ways and Means in the Assembly to and we regularly talk to the Housing Committee and the Governor's office as well. So we are up in Albany, talking to them down here. We're really doing our best to advocate for those dollars.
Do you feel that the state is treating NYCHA as a priority?
I think we've come a long way. I've been going up to NYCHA to Albany for 20 years, and there was a long time where I was banging my head against the wall. I think that especially with the new leadership in both houses, they did make it a priority, and we went from no dollars to over $1 billion in the last 10 years. Okay. So I think that's progress.
Thank you. We're going to move to lead abatement on the units. How many vacant units are currently awaiting lead abatement?
So how many vacant units are in the hundreds? Do
you have an exact number?
I'll get.
If you can.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to explain. So we've done 18,000 lead abatements over the past approximately 4 years. So we have So we do about 200 lead abatements per month in our vacant units. So we have two programs. Well, it's really one consistent program. We have our Tempo program. So any NYCHA resident that wants their apartment abated for lead can opt in voluntarily to Tempo, which enables them to have their apartment abated. We relocate them to a hotel. We provide meal assistance and also transportation assistance. Mm-hmm. We abate the lead. We repair the area that was under abatement, and then we move families home. We do that for hundreds of residents per month, and that has been a very successful program. However, we all understand that relocation is not for everybody, so it's critical that we also do it during our vacant process. So about 200 apartments per month are abated, and that is what we are currently funded for. We have extensive number of abatement contractors, so contractors is not an issue. We are just constantly abating apartments these days.
Has there been any complaints during that whole process from residents claiming that they were moved out their apartment or asked to relocate, and they got back to their apartment and nothing was done, or there was?
Not that nothing. Thank you, Chair, for that question. Certainly, there have been complaints. I mean, it's doing work in people's homes when they're not there. So one point of frustration can be, you go to a hotel, average stay right now is about 2 weeks. You come back expecting a new apartment. However, the city gave us money for lead abatement and for the repairs associated with that lead abatement.
Right.
So we don't have the ability to do a full renovation during that 2-week period. We do the areas that were under abatement, and that can be a small area or it can be a large area. We have in-house plasterers, we have carpenters dedicated to that program. But some folks might come back. For example, a common complaint we might get is, well, I didn't have any lead in my bathroom. You didn't touch my bathroom. You didn't repair my bathroom.
Right.
Well, unfortunately for that program, we want to get, it's a lead abatement program. So we want to get the lead out. We want to get it out as fast as possible for our youngest residents. Lead is a lifelong health issue if you have an elevated blood lead level, especially if you're under the age of 6. So this is a program dedicated at lead abatement, and we work with those residents. We have a great proactive team. We actually just got recognized by the TA president for Millbrook Houses. I think we've been on the ground for years now and learned a lot through that program. So I think we have got complaints. They've less today than when we first started, because we started it. This is the first time we ever did this, but
Okay.
yeah.
And when it comes to asbestos abatement, the DOI report mentioned that approximately 80% of NYCHA's vacant apartments contain asbestos containing materials. How many vacant units are currently awaiting asbestos treatment, and how many licensed asbestos abatement vendors does NYCHA currently have under contract?
I'm going to give you, thank you, Chair, for that question. I'm going to give you an answer on the units awaiting lead abatement right now, and then I'm going to get you the answer on asbestos in just a moment. So 1,120 units are currently awaiting lead work for vacant apartments as of right now.
Okay. And then I guess I'll ask the other two questions, maybe get that information as well. What is the average time from asbestos work orders to be abatement completion?
So the overall, so on the contract issue, so we are currently, we complete 200 lead abatements per month, as I mentioned, and we're budgeted to do 215 asbestos abatements each and every month in vacant units in our portfolio. For lead contracts, we have 6 lead contracts with a total capacity of $275 million and 9 asbestos contracts with a total capacity of $303 million. To date, NYCHA has spent $1,114 million, over $1,114 million for lead abatement, and over $104 million for asbestos abatement in vacant units in the public housing portfolio. How long does it take?
Yeah, the completion.
And we have 1,502 units awaiting asbestos abatement right now.
Okay.
And so the way that we have in the past few years, myself and others have developed workflows. So one of the issues that we saw when I first took this role, it was there was not good synchronization between the environmental teams and the construction teams. So now what we do is we ensure that the unit gets abated first as part of the first step. Once it is cleared, we then immediately notify the trades. We send out lists of completed vacant apartments every week that are cleared, so that trades can immediately begin work. That's how we increase our production. It's about, I would say, I don't have the number, but I'm gonna guess also. It's probably about a few months before we can start given the pipeline, because we have to work towards a budget, and right now we're budgeted to do 215 per month. For asbestos abatement. Asbestos abatement is very expensive in New York City. It's $25,000 on average per apartment.
Does NYCHA have a pre-qualified vendor list for the lead or asbestos abatements?
We have a stable of contractors that we go through a procurement process on a cycle basis to bring in, the qualified licensed contractors. So we have a large scale contract. It's not a pre-qualified list per se. It's but we go on cyclical contracts basically, so we're never losing contract capacity. We're just constantly going out for procurement and bringing in new contracts.
Okay. We're going to move on to unauthorized occupancy and vacant unit inspections. It was A portion of this was brought up by one of my colleagues. The DOI report identified 548 apartments reclaimed from unauthorized occupants between July of 2022 and May of 2025, but does not break down who those occupants were. Of the 548 cases, how many were trespasses with no prior connection to the apartment or tenant on record? How many of those were individuals who claimed the prior apartment of record and had permitted them to stay? How many of those were individuals asserting remaining family member claims? And are there any other categories?
Thank you, Chair. Excellent question. I think I'm going to rely on my colleagues a bit for this. I do want to give a brief overview of the numbers as noted in the DOI report. That statistic came from the NYPD. And so we'll talk about a couple of different numbers that'll get to your answers. I do just want to give a brief overview before we get into that of the process. Very brief.
Well, very brief, and then let me get to the numbers.
Okay. So just very brief, as I mentioned earlier, if our staff encounters a break-in a unit, we instruct them to immediately call 911 to have that person removed. And oftentimes that is done within an hour. Somebody who might be unhoused might break into a unit, or maybe kids will break into a unit. We immediately contact 911 and those individuals are removed. But what we're going to talk about in a moment, and I'll first refer to Mr. Kiss and then to the NYPD, is the more detailed cases that you have mentioned. So,
Sure. Chair Banks, thank you. First and foremost, before the police get involved in a situation, it is vetted through NYCHA and NYCHA's legal department, so that at the time it comes to the police department, we know that the individuals do not have a legal right to be there.
Right.
We also do our own separate investigation before we enter the apartment. So by the time it comes to the police, it has already been thoroughly investigated by NYCHA and the police that the individuals in there do not have a legal claim to the apartment. Of those 548 cases that you've cited, I just want to note that in 61% of the time, the officers do not make an arrest.
Okay.
That is for a couple of reasons. Number one, first and foremost, there are times where we enter an apartment that we're attempting to reclaim and no one's there. It's just empty. The second thing is that we want our officers in these type of situations to exercise discretion and judgment, and that we do come across people who may be solving the problem when they're inside this apartment should not be arresting them, but rather removing them and giving them help.
Correct.
So that's just one of the things why there are a raw number of reclamations, but in the overwhelming majority of the reclamations, the department does not make an arrest.
Okay. And of the 548 units, how many of these units were first vacant, then occupied by an unauthorized user?
That is mostly the case, Chair. That
they were vacant. And
they were vacant, and then somebody broke into those apartments.
Into the apartment.
That's correct. However, we've created
or the doors left open, and they
exactly, or the doors left open.
Wow.
What we created through the law department in conjunction with NYPD and DOI is to create a triangle where we evaluate the cases that come in, and we actually have property management fill out a link with as much information as they know about the specific apartment. And when we get that information, we do an analysis.
Can you repeat that again? You said who fills out the link?
Property management.
Property management fills out the link.
Fill out the link because they get the information. Sometimes we get information from a variety of sources. Sometimes, usually it's directly from property management, who hears from other residents, et cetera. We get information from the police department. And DOI sometimes gets anonymous complaints, and they do some research on that. When we receive that, we want to ensure that these apartments are apartments, in fact, that are squatters and therefore can be removed by NYPD. Very often, the apartments that are being sent to us are not situations where a tenant vacated. Sometimes there's an active tenancy going on. But there is people are a little bit unclear on how this works, but it's great for us at law because we're able to do an analysis. We're able to ascertain whether we have a pending legal action. If we don't, then we start a licensee proceeding in housing court against these individuals. What we find also is when we do start actions against these individuals, often they vacate the apartment on their own, even prior to eviction. So it's been a great process and procedure. Most cases we actually decline having PD go to the apartment because there are legal rights.
Right.
But because we get the information, we're able to move forward on each and every case that is sent to us.
When it comes to subleasing, subleasing a NYCHA apartment is prohibited under standard NYCHA lease. Did NYCHA find any evidence that a prior tenant or of record had permitted or arranged or accepted payment for unauthorized occupant to remain in the apartment?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. Absolutely, there are those circumstances that we find within these cases. In that one thing that I think is mentioned in the DOI report, but is I think really important to note here. When this program really kicked off in 2023, there was a tremendous grassroots effort with NYPD, with the NYCHA Law Department to educate property management on escalating these cases.
Right.
Therefore, a lot of these cases that are mentioned in the DOI report came from property management. For example, the Surfside Gardens example was from property management calling the police to immediately remove somebody when they identify. The literature was handed out. They came to our borough meetings, NYPD. NYPD met with our neighborhood administrators to spread the word. We had a strict reporting protocol that really led to the results that we saw in 2024, and I think the declining results we now see is the vigilance that this program created. So understand the critique, definitely understand some of that for NYCHA, accept it, but I do want to note the extensive effort here. The effort that Mr. Kiss spoke to is critical. We can't be illegally locking out people who have a right to be there, and that's the due process protection that we also have to guard against.
The DOI report mentions that 9 units identified between September 24 and September 25 remain occupied as of September 25, pending legal review by NYCHA Law Department. What is the status of the 9 cases? And what is the average time from identification of a disputed occupant to a final adjudication?
Thank you for that question. Our turnaround is actually very quick on those. If we're able to take action, usually within 2 weeks, sometimes a month, we'll have a response, and then we'll coordinate together with DOI and NYPD, and then they schedule their time frame, which is usually within 2 weeks to a month of that time period.
DOI found that NYCHA does not inspect vacant units for unauthorized occupants. And if they are waiting or undergoing renovation, it only inspects units that are ready for rental. NYCHA accepted DOI's recommendation to conduct monthly inspections, but said that implementation would take approximately 1 year due to IT work order development. Can you describe the IT upgrades that are needed to conduct monthly inspections of vacant units, and what is the timeline for implementing those needed IT upgrades, and how has the timeline been affected by the November 2025 termination of NYCHA's contract for new resident case management system, or RCMS?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. At the outset, I want to restate we're beginning this inspections immediately this month under an interim process, and we will have data tracking on those inspections that we'd be happy to share. That's going to start immediately. In terms of the maximum work order build out, the process is basically we have to work with the software developers or I don't know if that's the proper term for them, but the developers to build out a proper work order, which is a complicated process, and you got to get it right. by the end of the year, we're hoping to have that work order in place so that we can have it documented in Maximo. But we are going to start the process immediately, which I think will be a good process to start. Then there will be a work order, so you'll be able to track it, with some additional data, and that should hopefully be done by the end of the year. And work order development is complicated. This is a dynamic universe. I think the biggest IT challenge that we're going to have to implement here is the dynamic nature of the universe. We don't want to have somebody, because people are moving in and out every day. We don't want to have inspectors showing up and opening the door and somebody's in the apartment. So we have to make sure that that data talks to all the different systems so that we're truly getting the accurate vacant unit number for that month, since this is a dynamic population. And it's not affected by RCMS in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
No, it's Maximo.
And I think this is a question that I think most residents would ask. Why did it take so long to come to a conclusion or have to take a DOI recommendation to get NYCHA to inspect their vacant units? To me, it doesn't even, it makes no sense that NYCHA would take a position that they would inspect units once a year when the data shows there's been multiple complaints by residents of these unsafe units, doors being left open, squatters, even complaints of staff members using the apartments. Why did it take so long?
Thank you, Chair, for your question. I think the issue is enhancing the inspections. We do inspect vacant units. So when a unit becomes vacant,
So the year wait or this yearly inspection that was done on what classification of units?
the yearly inspection, that new inspection is just starting. So there's an inspection upon the turnover. So when somebody moves out, the superintendent does an inspection.
So superintendent does an inspection, tenant moves out the apartment, superintendent does the inspection.
Yes, sir.
And the management, they come back the year later and check the apartment out. That's what you're saying. That was the practice.
That simplifies the. So I'm at a property every single day. I'm
not talking about you. I'm talking about the management, the folks that are boots on the ground at the development. Is it your testimony that was the practice that every year? Well, let me just say this: one inspection was done for the year, and then by the superintendent, and then they waited another year to come later to do an inspection.
Thank you, Chair, for that question. I'd like to try to explain.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Feel free.
Thank
Yes.
you. Okay. So that on paper, that might be how it sounds. However, we have staff in our buildings every single day. As I mentioned, every day a caretaker has to walk down every floor in their building and report any conditions that they identify and report it into their supervisors each day. In addition, our superintendents are constantly walking move-outs to inspect.
Is that documented?
No, it's not. It's not documented.
How do you know?
The caretaker daily monthly inspection is
that it's being done?
So that I think is the crux of the DOI recommendation. Is they want a specific inspection for securing the unit, which we've agreed to. It is our staff work hard during the day. Our staff work very hard. Our superintendents, and often just one or two assistant superintendents, they're constantly inspecting occupied apartments as well. We also have to remember the vast majority of our apartments are occupied, and the superintendent and assistant superintendent are doing inspections. For example, we've dramatically reduced our mold inspection, which we must do under 5 days. This will be an additional inspection for them to do. It will be a challenge, like from a labor perspective, because they will have a lot more walking to do around the property. These two staff members, and our properties are large. There's a lot of inspections.
You have a breakdown of how many vacant units exist in each development.
Yes, sir, we do.
And broke down per building.
We have a list that changes.
Even if there was an inspection done monthly, which was being recommended by by DOI, that would have made sense. But it's just again troubling that it took so many years, in a sense, to figure this out and to have investigation done to figure that out. Thank you. Now this leads into questions on about the property manager staffing, and I think we good segue. How many property manager positions does NYCHA currently have, and how many of those positions are vacant?
So we have property managers at each of our consolidations. So every NYCHA development has a consolidation, has a property manager. I can get you the vacancies.
Yeah,
We're
need to-
constantly hiring off the civil
You
service
said
list
that
for that.
there's a property manager at every NYCHA development. There's no vacancies. Am I correct?
I did not say there's no vacancies. I said I'm going to get you the vacancy number right now. I
But
don't
you
have
said-
that number
but
at my
you- Your
fingertips.
first statement was that there's a property manager at every NYCHA development.
At every NYCHA consolidation, there's a property manager position, yes. And I am checking. The vast majority are filled. I'm checking to see what the small number of
Vast
vacancies.
majority are
Yes.
filled. Okay, so that means there are vacancies.
I'm going to get you that number right now, sir.
Okay. Well, you can get that number to us.
Yes, sir. I'm going to get you that number. Yes. I
So
apologize.
we'll move on now to resident watch and tenant patrols. Let me. I guess I'll start with this one. As of today, how many developments have active resident watches, and how does that compare to 5 or 10 years ago?
I'm going to refer these questions to James Secreto, our head of Office of Safety and Security.
Good afternoon.
You want me to repeat the question? She's going to swear
Sorry,
you
I
in.
just need to swear you in first. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do. 107 developments have active.
Active. How many NYCHA developments are there?
Roughly 200, Dan?
Well, what's your title, sir?
I'm going to say like 200.
What's your title?
VP of Public Safety.
How many NYCHA developments exist?
I'm going to say around 200.
And you said there's active 100 and how many?
107.
Okay. Is the resident watch supervisors, are they paid?
The
Or given a
supervisors,
stipend, or is there some type of compensation for the resident?
they work 2 hours a day,
Uh-huh.
5 days a week, and they do get paid. The supervisors.
So they get a stipend?
Yeah, it's like $400 a month or something.
Okay. And you said the current stipend is about $400 a month.
I believe so. And
when the last time was it increased?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't know.
Okay. You're familiar with the program?
Somewhat, yes.
Somewhat.
Well, it's under me.
What's your title again?
I'm the Vice President of Office of Public Safety.
Okay.
So, and I also
Judges.
was tenant patrol as a resident of NYCHA.
Okay.
And I think one of the in the pre-panel, one of the residents stated that it's not like it was once, and that is pretty true. Because pre-pandemic we had 3,000 volunteers. We're down now to about 1,100.
When the last time you've been to a NYCHA development and had
Last
a
time
meeting
I've been to a NYCHA.
with a resident patrol or resident watch?
I can't say I've been out there.
Okay.
I can't say.
I don't know if I should ask you further questions.
But that's a good question, and
I mean,
and I
but
should.
it's a good question, but I'm asking you the questions. I need you to
Okay.
answer them so we can.
Okay.
Okay. NYCHA started a quality of life form enactment, which will take about 6 months to a year to do the IT work. Does NYCHA have any update on when they plan to implement this recommendation?
It's currently almost finished. I would say 90% finished, and then it's going to go to IT to finalize. But currently, we use a paper form, which I happen to have here, that the resident watch would submit if they see any conditions in the building. They submit it to their supervisor, who submits it to the property management. And again, that's one of the recommendations of DOI is to speed up that process. In 72 hours, they'd have a response to these the form that's put in and the condition that's elaborated. But what we want to do and what we're doing is doing that app. And that app, one of the things about the app is we're trying to build back up that number. So, like I said, it was 3,000 at one point, it's 1,100. We're hoping to get younger people to see the app.
So what's I mean, outside of the app, what is being actively done on the ground to recruit resident watch residents?
We've done one of our goals in the Office of Public Safety was to do recruitment. So to go out, community meetings.
You have any recruitment material?
I don't have it in front of me, but I can get it. Sure.
Okay.
So
And
we did do a drive.
When was the last?
And
When was the
I
last drive
out
you
at,
did?
Strauss houses, speaking to residents there to try and get them to sign up.
Okay.
So we wanted to build it back up, build the program back up. And
So you want to build the program back up?
yes, build it, yeah,
Does
enhance it,
The
and make
program.
it better.
The program does exist.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. All right. And has there been any active training done for the current 107 developments that you say were the active resident associations?
We're
I mean, resident watch.
They do constant training. As a matter of fact, the NYPD did a joint training for us and with us, last year.
And how many participate in that training?
I'd say
all 107.
No, well, there's 1,100 members. I would say a good percentage of them. I don't have a number. I'll get the number, but that was one of the things we did with the NYPD.
Okay. We want to turn to locks and keys. DOI found that all vacant apartments within a single development share the same move-out key. And that is, in some cases, staff use a 65-inch key. The 65-inch key appears to be a generic key that also opens utility spaces and management offices across the authority. As of today, has NYCHA issued any directive to stop the use of this 65-inch key?
Sir, thank you, Chair, for that question.
65
Yeah, so I think in the protocol, number one, staff are not supposed to ever use a 65 key before the DOI report and after the DOI report. This was not a practice. When we learned of the DOI report, we did a survey. We did find a couple of developments varying from that practice, which was unacceptable, and we've taken immediate actions to have all those replaced with a proper move-out cylinder. So it was a slim minority that was using a 65 key, but that practice has never been permitted and should never be permitted. And DOI did not actually find any instance in their report. They just mentioned they found a 65 key in a unit, and they presumed that might have been used to access something. I don't also disagree that a 65 key is a problem, and so I acknowledge that the 65 key is definitely something we've already started evaluating what we can do about improving the 65 key.
So those locks have been changed?
The locks, yes, in the vacant apartments that in the small number that we found have been changed to the move-out cylinder.
And when you say small number, what's a small number?
It was maybe a I don't know. I don't have that number. I don't want to guess that it was a small number.
Get the number since it's
sure. I can get you that number. What
Appreciate
it was.
it. NYCHA accepted DOI's recommendation to evaluate the feasibility of alternative lock sets or security technologies and to update its standard procedure to reduce the number of apartments within the development that are accessible by the same key. When can we expect findings from NYCHA's evaluation of alternative lock sets, and when can we expect the rollout of the different lock sets within the development?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. So the first immediate thing is that we want And this was already the practice at a number of developments. This is really determined a lot by the superintendent, but we want to have multiple move-out cylinders in play at a development. So there's not just one common move-out cylinder. Every development has a bespoke move-out cylinder that is for that property, but they should have more than one, especially larger properties should have more than one to secure the unit. And if that is done properly with multiple cylinders in play, that should be a sufficient mechanism there because you're not using the same key or using different keys. You don't want to have too many because you also don't want to disrupt the work from occurring. Key management, when you're dealing with multiple trades to do the repairs or the abatement in the apartment is critical. So you want to make sure there's some level of commonality of the key to allow the work to happen efficiently. But we are going to look at alternative means. We'll certainly look at the cost. We'll certainly look at making sure it does not impede the need to work quickly in these apartments. We also don't want these to look different because one big flag on a vacant unit is if the lock looks significantly different, that will obviously flag that apartment as vacant or something in there. So we're going to look at all those factors. And as I said, we've already started looking at the other common keys in practice, which are mainly used in mechanical areas or other areas, which we do have concerns about, definitely from a security perspective. So I would say a few months. It's going to take us to do the analysis of the market research and what's feasible. But
what's the time frame? That's what
I would say 3 to 4 months,
3 to 4 months.
to do an analysis. But we are immediately going to ensure that there's more than one move-out cylinder being used at a development. We've already told that to staff months ago.
3 to 4 months for the rollout.
For that should be being done today. And if it's not being done today, that's a conversation between us and our staff. But in terms of the analysis, the feasibility study was not, the DOI report didn't say how that would be documented, but I assume it will be some sort of white paper or report. I would say 3 or 4 months so that we can do the market research and be able to examine that.
Has NYCHA or the NYPD conducted any analysis on whether concentrations of vacant units at specific developments correlate with higher rates of reported crime in those developments?
Thank you for that question, Chair. I'm going to refer to Chief Gallagher on that.
Councilmember, I can't say that the data bears that out in any way, shape, or form. I can tell you that the data seems to be distributed in terms of where the reclamated apartments are in line with just the general raw number of NYCHA developments. I can tell you, and I think it's important to say that the department is experiencing a very, very good year overall for crime in public housing.
Two of the most significant findings in the DOI report, the move-out key, the 65 key lock set vulnerability that did not appear in NYCHA's testimony when we discussed it. We discussed the vacant units, I believe in one of the last hearings. Was NYCHA aware of this security vulnerability in advance in the June 2025 hearing when we had it? Are you familiar?
Can you repeat that question, Councilmember? I
Two
apologize.
of the most significant findings in the DOI report was the move-out key and the 65 key lock set vulnerability. Which did not appear anywhere in NYCHA's testimony when we discussed it. When we discussed the vacant units, was NYCHA aware of this security vulnerability in advance of the June 2025 hearing that we had?
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. So NYCHA has been working with NYPD for 2 years on vacant unit security since 2023. It has been an issue that has been we've worked on extensively at the highest levels of the agency and down on the ground at individual properties. So we're definitely aware of the risk because we've been working on this issue.
So you were
for 2 years.
aware of the vulnerability?
Yeah, we've been working. That's why we created a program with NYPD and the law department to attack that vulnerability and improve it.
Okay. And then if you were aware of this, did NYCHA, I don't remember it being disclosed in the remarks that were given.
I didn't testify at the
testify.
hearing, so I'm not sure. I'm sure what you're referring to.
All right. When it comes to PAC and trust vacancies, We know with the conversions that have taken place, the 30-some thousand conversions that have taken place. At the June 2025 hearing, the council asked NYCHA whether or not they proactively inspect vacant units for unauthorized occupancy. NYCHA responded at the hearing that they were not proactively going to each vacant unit because the volume of staff entering the apartment to conduct turnover work was sufficient. 9 months later, the DOI report concluded the exact opposite, and NYCHA accepted the DOI's recommendation to conduct monthly proactive inspections for Section 9 units. Will NYCHA commit today to extend that same monthly proactive inspection requirement to vacant units and PAC and trust developments, and have it been on the same implementation timelines as the Section 9 developments as well?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. So I'll have to take that back to speak to that program about it. I don't oversee the PAC development, so I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I will take it back.
Anybody that can speak, is there anybody that can speak on the behalf of PAC? Okay. I guess if you can, get us that information, definitely. Continue, I'm gonna go through the questions pertaining to RAD PAC vacancies, and I'll just read them to get them on the record. Hold on a minute. Okay. How does NYCHA communicate with PAC and trust developments to ensure vacant units are being properly turned over and secured?
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. We will have to take that back to the PAC program. They're not here today.
And these are, as I said,
I think Mr. Honan is going to provide answers on this.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember. So we have an asset management team that regularly talks to the PAC partners. We currently have in the PAC portfolio about 1,700 vacancies. One thing to note is that in the PAC developments, the apartments have been renovated, so there's a lot less work that needs to be done when turning over these apartments.
Right.
Whereas in the public housing portfolio, the average resident lives in the apartment for over 20 years, and you pretty much so have to, rehab the entire apartment for all those years of wear and tear.
Are you aware of any unauthorized occupants in PAC or trust developments?
Not aware of. If we're talking about unauthorized, meaning not on the lease, but somebody who is related or somehow has a relationship, yes, I've heard of those cases. But in terms of having no relationship, we do hear of those cases soon after turnover. But eventually, no, those cases are weeded out.
And what's the vacancy rate in the RAD PACs?
I don't have that number. I just have the number of vacancies, but I don't have the percentage.
What's the number of vacancies then?
It's 1,700.
1,700.
Mm-hmm.
And that's included. Is that included in the overall number?
No, that's not
6,
included in the pub. No, that's a different number.
So 1,700 vacancies that are in the RAD PAC converted developments.
But
how many units have been converted?
About 30,000.
30,000. Okay, and there's 1,700 vacancies that exist.
Correct. But this is, again, it is a number that changes all the time.
So what's the accurate number?
So right now it's about 1,700.
1,700 as of today.
Correct. Exactly.
And can you give us a breakdown? Because NYCHA does oversight over these RAD PAC developments. Am I correct?
Yep.
So can you give us a breakdown of those vacancies?
We can give you a breakdown by development, sure, but we'd have
Well,
to do that as a
breakdown.
follow.
No, the breakdown of developments by developments, and then the breakdown for what's the status or the reason why they're vacant.
Okay, yeah, we can follow up. We didn't follow up. We could definitely get that information.
Do you plan on conducting proactive outreach to understand whether PAC or the trust developments experience unauthorized occupancies or improperly secured vacant apartments?
It is something that, safety and security is something that is really important and is a key component of both PACT and in the trust. And it is increased safety and security too. So it is something that, yes, it's something that we monitor, and we'll monitor in both programs.
The security apparatus in the PAC developments, is there any type of coordination with NYCHA?
We do, and all of the PAC partners have to submit a security plan as part of the scope of work. So and those plans are not only cameras, but oftentimes it is hardened entranceways. Sometimes it has security officers on site. Sometimes I've seen a thing called like virtual doormen. So if you are in a hallway, maybe for a little bit, longer than you should be, a voice will come over and say, please move on. So there are a lot of different ways, a lot of ways that are very creative, but it is a key part of the program.
What about resident watch? How many active resident watch? Would you be able to answer the question or no?
Not for Red Pack.
So, do we have active numbers of how many active resident watch?
Yeah, that I don't know. But again, I can go back to the committee for that one.
Okay. And if you can get back to us, or if you have this information, what are there any active trainings that are being done that are required for the Rad Pack management or new management that comes in to provide to the tenants who are?
Well, we do, as part of our, meeting with them in advance and regular conversations, we do go over safety, and security issues regularly. And it is in both of our interests to make sure these properties are secure. And I think we do see improvements. The biggest improvement, I just know anecdotally, was like at Ocean Bay, right? Ocean Bay was a development known to have a lot of instances of crime, but after conversion, in year number 2, I think they recorded like over 2 years without an incident, and because things improved physically, they also improved socially.
Can PD speak to that, please, on the Rad Packs? Is there any coordination as far as with the security apparatus and some data on the vacant units when it comes to crime or gang activity? Or
we don't track, we don't link crime reports directly to vacant apartments. Our data is done by a sector or by a PSA.
Right. The form that you're talking about that is done, I guess it's like what was the title of the form?
The form
that
for
they fill out?
for Resident Watch?
For Resident Watch or reports from the management company on, I guess, crimes that have taken place.
Mm-hmm.
Is that form shared with PD? Is there any coordination with PD on that?
Well, all of our crime data we get from PD, so that is.
Well, I'm talking about the form that the management company fills out, because I know there was a situation I remember at Linden Houses where a tenant basically pulled out a gun or some sort on another resident, and when we had questioned the management company. Well, first of all, the management company knew nothing about it after there were reports that were made, and then they had to kind of figure it out that they did know about it. But we were trying to figure out when did PD get involved and what was their interaction with PD and looking at the cameras if need be.
Sure. for us to initiate an investigation, we need to go off of an NYPD complaint report. We want that person to speak to a police officer, one, so that we can get all the details, so that we can assess the truthfulness of the person, and then we can conduct our investigation on the basis of that. Knowing just the limited data about the fact pattern that was just described to me, that definitely sounds like something that would be investigated through exactly what you said, a video canvas, where we try to find video and get some type of objective record of what happened.
I want to just make it clear today that we need more oversight with NYCHA, over NYCHA with the RAD packs, especially when it comes to securing the residents. And this leads to my next question. Can you commit to working with together with the PAC and trust developments to find out if and what extent there is vacancy security issues in their developments?
Sure, we always have conversations with them, and we can look into that. And again, in follow-up conversations, we can get back to you on that.
Okay.
And Chair Banks, I do have that information on the property manager vacancies. We have 5 current vacancies at the properties.
5 throughout?
Yeah, throughout the 115 consolidations.
Okay.
Yeah, 243 developments, broken down into the 115 consolidations.
Okay. And with those 5 vacancies, what's the structure there now? Is it their assistant manager? Is there no assistant manager as well?
Let me look at the Mariners. We don't have we have a floating manager in Staten Island. We have a lot of staffing in Staten Island is very challenging in the property management offices, retaining staff there. So the vacancy there is at Mariners Harbor. There we created a floating manager position on the island to cover because we frequently have staff shortages there, either as housing assistants or as or property managers. So right now, that floating manager will supplement who's experienced, who will work at the properties that have it. And in Staten Island, generally, they're able to maintain it that way. We also have a very experienced neighborhood administrator that we just brought out to Staten Island, who's excellent, who is also fulfilling those functions where there is a gap.
Okay, and I want to go back to RADPAC real quickly. When it comes to security apparatuses for those converted developments, is it practice for the RADPACs, who actually, most of them got, well, some of them based on obviously off of the size, got hundreds of millions of dollars to do renovations, to then turn around and ask council members for capital monies?
So I'm not aware of that, but
Florentino houses at Florentino houses was converted, small development, at a tenant association meeting. I believe security gates around the development, or it was stated to go and ask by the management to go and ask your council member for capital monies. And I believe Florentino got about $280 million to rehab the developments. I want to find out why they asking the council member for capital monies when that should have been part of the work scope.
Council member, I can't speak to that because I'm not aware, but I would like to learn more about it.
Well, I want you to go back and do your investigation.
I will do
it. Do your oversight that you should be doing, and find out why they're asking council members for capital monies when they had well enough monies to do that.
I will ask.
Yeah. Okay, that concludes our line of questioning for the administration or for the authority. Thank you so much. We will now move to public testimony. I'm opening up this hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from this table. Members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant of Arms for inclusion into the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant of Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic. And if you wish to submit a written statement or additional written testimony for the record, please give a copy to the Sergeant of Arms. You also may email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. I will now call the first panel. Salinas Miranda. We have the Legal Aid Society, Newman, Mr. or Mrs. Newman. Levy or Lacey Newman? Lacey, sorry about that. Isabel Greenberg. And Yvonne Ma. It's 2 minutes. But if you need a little extra time, we'll definitely accommodate you. I'm the chair.
Okay, so we're ready?
Huh?
We're ready?
Yes. So you may begin your testimony.
In the demolition proposal of the Fulton and Elliott Chelsea houses, we've been accused of misinforming the public. That's the key word NYCHA uses as a defense tactic. However, they never specify and say how those of us who oppose demolition have been misinforming. I can give you a few examples of the misinformation that's been circulated. First, NYCHA labeled the non-legally binding survey as a vote to legitimize demolition and only changed their tone after they've been publicly confronted about it on various occasions. Second, they said that rehabilitating the buildings would be costlier than demolition and rebuilding. However, it was later revealed that demolition and reconstruction will cost $1.9 billion, nearly twice as much. They also said that our buildings were falling apart, but NYCHA and the private developer later admitted in a letter to Community Board 4 that our buildings are structurally sound. All misleading claims that shape public perception and steer support towards the mass demolition of an existing community. They have been misleading the public in so many ways. There's more. The Meanwhile Plan was initially presented as an interim plan for repairs of our buildings, with NYCHA expected to cover the cost. When confronted about NYCHA's lack of available funding, this plan was rebranded as the Bridge Plan, with the private developer Essence positioned as covering those expenses. While this change may create the appearance of relieving NYCHA of financial responsibility, the reality remains the same. NYCHA is ultimately responsible for reimbursing Essence for these interim expenses. And so the funding source has not changed, only the way it is presented. They also claim that 60% of the residents chose demolition on a survey, but the breakdown of the survey is confusing to understand. Where 60% sounds like the majority, the actual numbers reveal the truth. 550 is the amount of tenants that chose demolition out of 3,388 eligible survey participants. They want to demolish a community on 550 residents who chose reconstruction on a survey. That's not even a quarter of the NYCHA population in Chelsea. NYCHA is right. There has been misinformation, plenty of it, and it's all coming from them. NYCHA and the private developers, all of their claims and accusations of us are simply a reflection of how they have been operating deceptively. We must hold NYCHA accountable and stop demolition and stop warehousing our public housing apartments to prioritize the interests of private developers. We must fill those empty units that's so urgently needed. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. You may begin.
Hello, I am Isabel Greenberg, and I am a Policy and Business Development Associate with the Center for Employment Opportunities, CEO. And I'm submitting this testimony to urge the committee to advocate for the restoration of CEO's work crews with NYCHA and highlight the necessity of transitional employment for individuals returning home from incarceration. CEO's mission is to provide immediate, effective, and comprehensive employment services to individuals recently returning home from incarceration. And our work crews provide high-quality cleaning, beautification, and trash removal services that allow justice-involved New Yorkers to reinvest in their communities. We are the largest provider of reentry employment services in New York, and we've served over 47,000 New Yorkers since 1996. Independent evaluations have shown that our program reduces recidivism by 22%, increases employment rates by 52%. Transitional jobs offer New Yorkers returning home immediate employment with daily pay and provide the stability necessary to build career capital. We're grateful for NYCHA to continuing to contract for this partnership. However, our ability to provide this essential and safety net is currently under threat due to a significant loss of NYCHA partnership sites under the last administration. Since CEO's partnership with NYCHA began in 2017, we have lost over 10 NYCHA crews. Most recently, in December 2025, CEO lost its longstanding crew at Bayview Houses due to private management taking over. CEO has been informed that NYCHA has been scaling back due to financial limitations. While we primarily contract with NYCHA to provide beautification and maintenance services, including cleaning out vacant apartments, our scope of work has remained adaptable to the needs of NYCHA residents. During the pandemic, CEO assisted NYCHA by distributing over 96,000 meals to senior residents. Currently, CEO is only down to 3 active NYCHA properties: Webster, Coney Island, and Marlborough houses. We're asking the chair and the committee to advocate directly to NYCHA leadership to stabilize our existing contracts and prioritize the restoration of lost crew slots and expansion of services to additional properties. So I won't continue, but thank you.
Thank you. You may begin your testimony.
Thanks. Good afternoon. My name is Evan Ma. I'm a senior staff attorney with Brooklyn Defender Services Civil Justice Practice. Thank you to Chair Banks and the committee for the opportunity to testify today about NYCHA's vacant apartments. BDS is a public defense office. We provide criminal, family, immigration, and civil legal services in both Brooklyn and Queens. Because we work at the intersection of these legal systems, we witness every day the collateral legal issues that stem from legal system involvement, including housing, employment, and educational issues. Specifically, I'll be testifying briefly about some of the collateral consequences of NYCHA's efforts to turn around vacant apartments. We applaud these efforts to increase the efficiency and expand access to safe and affordable housing to all New Yorkers. However, we urge this committee to take into account the dangers of allowing NYCHA to collaborate with the NYPD to circumvent the administrative and judicial eviction process, particularly as they seek to expedite the turnover of these apartments. The reality in NYCHA is that there are numerous people living in these apartments who are unauthorized occupants for a variety of reasons. These people still have profound due process rights before they're forcibly removed from these apartments, often their homes. Using NYCHA to reclaim these apartments in lieu of seeking to evict individuals through the established judicial and administrative processes is a violation of their due process rights. We believe that NYCHA staff and the NYPD lack the resources, expertise, and legal authority to ensure that they are not acting in contravention of these people's rights. And we just heard from NYCHA staff about some of the issues about how they collect information about this, particularly about the Resident Watch program. And I'll say this isn't just a hypothetical concern. Despite NYCHA's claims today that they are aware of these due process issues, real BDS clients have experienced these NYCHA reclamations and had their due process rights violated. Our client, Mr. S, was just last fall wrongfully removed from his apartment after NYCHA and the NYPD collaborated. He was arrested for trespassing. Those charges were ultimately dropped, but he was locked out of the apartment for weeks. He was forced to live on the street. And Mr. S was not someone who was unknown to NYCHA. He was someone who had been given RFM, remaining family member, paperwork and was a licensee of the tenant before his removal. Despite this, NYPD evicted him in clear violation of his due process rights. He filed a legal lockout proceeding in housing court and was immediately restored. But had our client not had access to legal counsel, who knows what would have happened to him in this situation. So I think I'll end it there since I'm over time, but I think the point is that we have multiple clients just in the past year who have been victims of this reclamation process, who were then later restored, but the harm cannot be undone to them. And who knows how many other folks are suffering the same. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We'll also be submitting written testimony.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good afternoon. Lucy Newman from the Legal Aid Society. Your Honor, in 2014, Councilmember Richie Torres held a hearing at Brook Ellen Houses to talk about safety and security at NYCHA. It feels like we're talking about the same things 12 years later. NYCHA's failure as a landlord to secure buildings with working locks and intercoms, and the over-policing of NYCHA communities does not make them safer. We have serious concerns at Legal Aid about the NYPD and the DOI involvement in efforts by NYCHA as a landlord to secure possession of apartments where there are people residing in them. There are well spelled out civil legal processes that NYCHA is mandated by law to follow, and the NYPD and DOI cannot be allowed to run roughshod over residents' constitutional and other legal rights. Everyone in New York City has a right to be safe in their home. This right applies to both residents of public and private housing. Feeling safe in one's home means having working legal locks for the building entrance and the apartment itself. It means having well-lit stairwells, having a working intercom system, and it means that elevators in the building function regularly. Feeling safe in a home also means that one's friends and relatives can visit without fear that they'll face harassment by the NYPD. Feeling safe means living in a community where residents feel safe and supported. As you know, in New York, self-help eviction is illegal in almost every situation. Laws that protect occupants of apartments from being removed without notice must be strictly adhered to. NYCHA has an obligation as owner and landlord of its public housing developments to carefully process situations where there is an occupant residing in a unit without a lease. And again, we have concerns about the NYPD and DOI inserting themselves in what should be a civil legal process that requires due process in summary proceedings before removing occupants. NYPD and DOI are not qualified to make determinations as to the legal rights of occupants. That is for judges in housing court. Today, we urge NYCHA to fulfill its job as a landlord, ensure that residents are living in safe and habitable homes, and we ask the city to continue designating funds to NYCHA so that they can make the urgently needed repairs to get units ready for occupancy by other households. NYCHA should follow civil legal processes for determining rights to apartments and not permit the DOI or NYPD to take on that role. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Adelo Ramirez, Annette Tomlin, and Terry Capuzano. All right, we'll begin with Ms. Tomlin. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Good afternoon. My name is Annette Tomlin. I am a resident of Brook Ellen Houses. As I sat here this afternoon to listen to what NYCHA has expressed, I think it's shameful, because how long are they going to be able to get away with this madness that they continue to just do? They think that the residents are just dumb. We free dumbness, okay? And it's ridiculous of how they continuously keep having these excuses. The questions that you asked, Mr. Banks, they didn't even have the information that was needed. We go through this here seriousness all the time. So how competent or incompetent are they? When it comes to this Rad Pack, the monies that was spent on a failure, complete failure, where they should have been investing in NYCHA, is beyond my understanding. So I come here for more clarity and more understanding, and trying to get the tenants to understand how to band together, because NYCHA, as far as public housing, is worth saving. It's not about this privatization, because it's not going to work. We have seen time and time over again, especially in our own district, that it is failing across the board. So when we have all these the other gentleman, he couldn't even tell you how many different NYCHA housing developments there were accurately. You can look that up right at the site. And he wasn't able to give you an accurate number. And I think this is shameful. They all need to be gone. We need a whole new set of people who are going to have integrity. And if it takes the residents to be at the table, to actually sit there and advocate for themselves, then be so. Because this is unacceptable. NYCHA is over 90 years old. The plumbing, the electricity, and all of these other things that need to be addressed. My cat won't even drink the water. That's unacceptable. And something has to be done. It's a demand, no longer an ask. Thank you for my time.
Thank you for your testimony. We will go to Adelo Ramirez. Mr. Ramirez, that's you, sir. You may begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Adela Ramirez, and I am here because I believe New York City can stop generational poverty before it starts. Today, you're discussing security measures with NYCHA's vacant apartments, but vacancies, shelters, and long-term dependencies all have one thing in common. They begin with a lack of financial knowledge early in life. I didn't grow up with parents to teach me about money. Many of our youth don't have that guidance either. And when young people enter adulthood without basic financial skills, they end up vulnerable to debt, instability, and eventually the systems we're talking about today. That's why I'm advocating for financial literacy to be implemented in all middle and high school across New York City. Because the truth is simple. There will never be a salary big enough if money doesn't get managed properly. If we want fewer families entering NYCHA, fewer long shelter stays, and fewer cycles of dependency, we must start upstreaming in the classroom, teaching students how to budget, how to save, how to build credit, how to avoid predatory debt. How to make smart financial decisions is not a luxury, it's a prevention strategy. We spend billions reacting to poverty. We spend almost nothing preventing it. Financial literacy is the missing piece. It prepares young people for adulthood, stabilizes families, and reduces long-term pressure on the very system this committee oversees. I'm not asking for a new agency or a massive budget. I am asking for a shift in priorities to give every student the tools that financially stable families already teach at a home. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Now we'll move on to Mr. Campuzano. Sorry about that, sir.
No problem.
You may begin your testimony.
Okay. I'm here to talk about the safety and security of the senior buildings. I am the TA president of NYCHA Tower. We're a standalone 20-story senior building in the heart of the East Village. Recently, I mean, anybody and everybody could walk into these buildings, and they do. I've been talking with Chief Secreto about hopefully having monitors put in the lobby for the nighttime security, and also maybe for the TA offices so that we could see everything in real time. Recently, they found guns on the 19th floor of my building, and that's really alarming. So we have school kids coming in. We don't know if those guns were from community guns, that the gangs hide the guns within certain boxes and stairwells in the building, or if they were placed there by some scrupulous tenant, a non-tenant. So we don't know that. The police are trying to find out the origins of the guns now and ballistics. So this is a problem for us. We don't know what we could do as far as security. This is one of the main reasons why our building has chosen to go into the PAT route, because we find that, and because of the complete destruction of NYCHA Tower, that we are heading into that direction. Although I wish there was another one, but that's what we have. At least we'll be afforded cameras on every floor, which we don't have now. We just have them on the bottom floors. So.
Thank you for your testimony. Let me just have a question for you. Uh, are you aware of how many vacant units exist in your particular development?
Yes, we had plenty. We have like, because of the Rad Pack situation, we have like maybe 60 apartments offline, and this has been going on for 3 years. I'm hoping the original reason why we have the empty apartments is because when Meltzer Tower was going to be the tower that was going to be repaired, those apartments were supposed to be used as complementary apartments while the other apartments were being fixed.
Okay.
So thanks to Safety and Security, Dan Green, PSA 4, and our Gompers management, we were able to remove a great deal of those squatters.
Okay.
Okay.
And this was prior to
This is
the
no,
conversion.
this is during the conversion.
During the
Because
conversion. Okay.
so far we haven't been signed off on it, but we have like 50 and 60 apartments empty. So it's easy for people to come in with drills, and they have been seen there with drills trying to drill in the doors because they could tell if they're vacant or not. So it's easy access into the buildings.
Right. And currently, who is there a management company that's now, or are you in the early stages of the?
Yeah, nothing's been signed off yet. We have chosen the partners.
Okay.
But Gompers management has done a great job for us.
Okay.
You know, NYCHA, they've done an excellent job.
How has that process been?
With the Rad Pack?
Yeah.
It's
with the engagement,
ongoing.
okay.
We're hoping that they're not trying to convert these senior buildings into regular stock. So I've heard from one of the people involved that it seems like NYCHA might want to try to exhaust the senior list and then just go on to the regular list, and we're going to fight that every step.
Demanded that it stays.
Yeah, because we need senior buildings terrible.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, let us know any way the committee can assist you, and help, support
I
you.
sure will. I've been waiting to meet you and maybe get your card.
Okay.
Okay.
Look forward to having a sidebar with you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you all for your testimony. We have Santiago's the last name. You're the only person on the panel right now. Good to see you again. Likewise. You may begin your testimony. You gotta turn the mic on and move it a little closer. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brenda de Santiago, and I am a longtime public housing resident and advocate. I am here today to speak on the urgent issue of security and vacant apartments in the security and vacant NYCHA apartments, and the deeper failures in accountability that continue to harm residents like myself. For over 11 years, I've been an advocate for the community of First Houses. What I witness is not neglect, it is a pattern of systematic failure. But the issue goes even deeper. At First Houses, residents have endorsed a roof replacement project that began in late 2023. Families from the top 2 floors were relocated with promise the right to return to their original homes. Today, many of the residents still are not returned. We are not being told there are no funds. We are being told that there is no funds to complete the process, to bring families back. Imagine being displaced from your home, holding on to promise of return, only to be told the promise no longer matters because there's no money. Because the money is gone. There is not just mismanagement, this is injustice. Why are landlords not being held accountable under the law when they fail to follow through on relocation and return agreements? Why is there no enforcement mechanism from the city council or this administration ensure that residents are protected? Public housing residents deserve the same legal protection, the same dignity, and the same urgency as any other New Yorkers. We need transparency on funding and timelines, repairs and relocation. legal accountability when relocation rights are violated, clear penalties when agencies fail to deliver
You may continue.
on commitments. Thank you. This is not just about buildings. This is about people, family, and stability. We are not asking for special treatments. We're asking for fairness, safety, and accountability. If we don't defend public housing residents, then who will? Thank you.
And just for the record, can you repeat the development where this massive displacement took place?
So, first houses development?
First houses, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Francis? You may begin your testimony when you get settled. No, hold on. Let's get the mic for the brother. You're going to turn the mic on. There's a button right there at the bottom. Just press it. There we go.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
I'm a firm believer in solutions. As a lifetime resident of public house, I live in the Bronx, my Haven house, which I watched build. My father was a city worker who served the military in World War II, who moved to Patterson House. When it first opened up in 1950, Melrose was the second, but Patterson was the first public housing development in Bronx County. Made to go out here and create public house for one reason only. City workers could not afford the rent. And also they said something about a bleeding place for criminal behavior and infant mortality. But at the same time he created public house, he also signed up on a contract to build on Stuyvesant Town, which had a clause that no blacks need apply. It's all part of New York City history. But when we made the preservation a number of years ago, those who forget the lesson of the past are doomed to repeat the mistakes in the future. I remember when House and Police was created for one reason only in the early 50s. Because the Constitution of NYPD stated that NYPD could not patrol individual buildings, so House and Police was created to patrol individual buildings, but this is why they're stationed there. Then they pulled them out. And when I ran up on my tenants association, my head and said we could take them to court because they violate their own constitution, they refused. Also, I remember when all housing workers used to live in public housing back in the 50s. Then the law got changed. At that time, they had a law that said you want to be a city worker, you have to be a city resident. They changed that law under Mayor Wagner. Well, grasping that concept right there, when we made the presentation more than 40 years ago, because there's only one reason why the city is not privatizing NYCHA yet. They do not know what to do with the workforce. We said straight up front, we, the tenants, and a number of people agree with me, take it over and run it ourselves. That management office will become our bank and insurance company. Every apartment becomes a share, which will eliminate the homeless situation. You will own all the business, because every house in development has a laundromat, which is now closed. I used to manage a laundromat, and I know the kind of money that flows through that laundromat, which will take care of a whole lot of expenses. Not only that, everybody who works there will live there. You will establish your own school. Why? To train your own workforce. The money will stay there and circulate. Because I look around and see all these job businesses opening up and none of them invest in the public housing development. I say on to you, the best thing you do with public housing right now is turn over to tenants, let it run themselves, and the money will stay there and will eliminate a whole lot of homes. Why is that? How the heck do you want to build a jail?
30 seconds to wrap it up, sir.
3 blocks from 2 elementary schools in the midst of at least 4 public house developments in the Bronx. You allow that to materialize. I'm glad that boat is gone. But the money needs to be invested in public house because the United States or North America can rebuild Europe and Japan after World War II, because charity begins at home. they definitely could take that same money under what they call the Marshall Plan and put it right here in New York City, because Wall Street is right down the block. Y'all have a blessed day, because the money is there.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, sir. We will now turn to remote testimony. And once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant of Arms will give you the go-ahead to begin. Please wait for the sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. We have our first member that's going to give testimony, Carmen Quinones.
You may begin.
Carmen Quinones, are you still there? She's on. We'll come back to you, Ms. Quinones. Cynthia Tibbs.
You may begin.
Yeah, good afternoon. I don't know how we went from 5 minutes of testimony to 2 minutes, but here we are. Number one, I have vacant units in my development that have been vacant for approximately 4 years, and NYCHA has done nothing with them. And I know this because 3 of them exist in my building, one directly underneath me due to a cave ceiling, and the cave ceiling is still there and the debris is still there. NYCHA has not done anything with these vacant units for the simple fact that they leave them vacant if you're considered part of the 62,000 that are going to be put in the PAC program. So now here's my development being put in the biggest bundle that NYCHA has ever done in its existence. And now they're telling us that the units will be repaired once we decide who the developers are going to be. That's unacceptable. As far as safety and security goes, Vice President / Chief of NYCHA Police, Chief Secreto, does not make me safe nor secure. Last year, I got assaulted in the lobby of my my building. No, we don't have cameras, but the private building next to mine has a camera that faces directly into our entrance. The 24th precinct responded because Chief Secreto did not communicate with the 24th precinct in a timely manner to get the videotape of the person that entered my building and assaulted me at the time of the attack. The tape wound up being erased and my case got closed. This is NYCHA's habit. Safety and security is more about Amazon lockers than anything right now. We also had vacant units where there were drug dealers in them. The police get them out. The next thing we know, the 65 key is used. The apartment's back in business again. They terrorized a whole building where we had residents hiding in Dwayne Reed until
Thank
the
you. Your
police
time
could
has
come
expired.
because they had
You
them.
have a minute to wrap it up, Ms. Tibbs.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I appreciate it. On another note, nothing is getting done in this development now that we are being targeted for PACT. Last night, I did a walkthrough with the president of one of the PACT developments under Wavecrest to find quote unquote business as usual in front of the management office of all places at 9 o'clock at night because there's no security there at night. So for people who think that they're going to be safe with this new private security that comes in, it's not happening. This development has had homeless people in there at nighttime, naked, defecating in the stairwells, and they've been a part of the PAC program now for 6 years. Nothing changes. NYCHA does not monitor any of these PAC developments once they turn the keys over. They'll tell you they do, but they don't support the evidence. Again, they sit there, they take an oath to tell the truth, they lie, they leave, and they never supply you with the data that you asked for. I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Tibbs. We'll now move to Deanta Chavis.
You may begin.
Hello, can you
Ms.
hear me?
Chavis?
Okay, is it true we only got 2 minutes now? Come on
I,
now.
I'll give you a few more, a minute if you need be, but yes,
Yes,
two
I
minutes
do,
is the
because there's a lot.
standard. Two
Yes,
two
I
minutes is the standard
understand.
now. 5 minutes was for the pre-panel, which we allowed NYCHA residents to speak during that pre-panel. But
Okay.
2 minutes, but I'll it's at my discretion.
Okay, can we start now?
You may begin your testimony, Ms. Chavis.
Thank you. Okay, and I want to thank you and commend you for asking the $80 billion question on capital needs. It was an issue we brought up at the last city council hearing, and I'm glad the question was posed, and we are all looking forward to those numbers. I think it's quite telling and worthy of note that an $80 billion capital need for which residents are being forced into Rad Pack in order to alleviate the need, but when asked and questioned concerning the current need, they don't have a clue. Nevertheless, I digress. I know of no one needing money who doesn't know the amount of need, particularly if it forces you to turn over your property. On another note, I believe that a request for information ought to be made concerning the transfers and or relocations underneath Rad Pack. NYCHA testified earlier that the amount of vacancies underneath Rad Pack conversions are separate and apart from the over 6,000 vacancies that have been made public. And if that's true, then we do not have an actual count of vacancies. Perhaps the DOI who gave the numbers from its investigation didn't take into account the vacancies being withheld by NYCHA under their plans for conversion. And if a certain amount of vacancies are being withheld for this purpose, then it's unreasonable to believe that people are being taken from the waiting list and placed into these apartments. In regards to resident watch, the program currently in force is an old, outdated program that gets zero support in the manner that's needed in light of the rise of crime from years ago. The majority of people in resident watch are seniors. They like what they do, but you cannot expect them to tell loiterers to get out of the hallway or to not hang out in the hallways. There needs to be a concerted effort between PSA 4, who is sometimes on the ground, sometimes not on the ground, depending on the needs of their commander, who
Thank you. Your time just
relocates them
expired.
and reassigns
You
them.
have an extra minute, Ms.
Okay,
Chavis. Go ahead.
okay, so the bulk of what I'm saying is that without any coordinated effort between PSAs and the tenant watch, you're wasting your time. You don't have tenant watch. You don't have resident watch. Okay, they're not going to direct anybody to leave the hallways or anything. And so a hearing needs to be held with PSA 4 commanders, okay, to get them in line to assign these officers to the buildings that in fact have a tenant watch to back up those who are yet still on tenant watch. It's the reasons why people don't even sit on there. They're not going to put their life on the line. That's what cops do. Where they at? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Chavis. Uh, Julie Sharpton.
You may begin.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I first want to say thank you. Sorry, 1 second, please. Please don't start my clock. Just yeah, just give me a minute. Okay.
No, you go ahead.
I just first want to say thank you, Chair Banks, for your ongoing, consistent support in our needs and the plights we face as residents of Whitman houses at large. So good afternoon to you and members of the council. My name is Julie Sharpton. I am the president of Whitman Houses Resident Association. I am here to make basically a statement and to speak to the contradiction we can't continue to ignore. We talk about creating affordable housing, yet at the same time, we are allowing the largest source of affordable housing that we already have, which is New York City Housing Authority, to be underinvested and gradually privatized. That does not make sense. NYCHA is already home to hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. It is the foundation of affordability in this city. So why are we not prioritizing its preservation with the same urgency we place on building new housing? Because the reality is this: when public housing is turned over to private developers, affordability does not stay the same. Over time, it erodes and units move closer to market rate, which is the real underlying desire of privatization. Who is impacted? Seniors living in fixed incomes, resident relying on Social Security and public assistance, working class New Yorkers earning 20 to 25,000 a year, people working in fast food, retail, and essential jobs that keep this city running. These are the very people NYCHA was created to serve. So I ask, how can we claim to support affordable housing when allowing the largest system of it to be weakened? We cannot build our way into affordability while simultaneously losing it. If we are serious about equity and stability, then we must do both. But first, we must protect what already exists.
You have a minute to
Reinvest
wrap
in-
it up. An extra
Thank you.
minute.
Thank you, sir. Reinvest in NYCHA. Preserve it as public housing. Keep it truly affordable for the generations who depend on it. Also, when you have incentivized by offering stipends, which is being purported that resident associations can not continue to offer stipends to our residents who volunteer and do things like volunteer tenant patrol. Incentivizing that helps to get residents involved. Yes, we want to get to a place where an incentive is not needed to turn your attention and be a part of your community, but it certainly is a good start. And if that is taken away from us through NYCHA's policy, then we lose another angle and means to try and support resident patrol. Thank you very much for your time. I yield.
Thank you for your testimony. Dana Eldon.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Banks and members of the Committee on Public Housing. My name is Dana Eldon, and I'm the president of St. Mary's Park Houses Resident Council, and I appreciate this opportunity. I have come before this committee many times. It is my concern that the failing to repair Section 9 apartments while putting money solely into Section 8 Rad Pack and the trust conversions. Section 9 must be fully funded, securing the funds needed to repair thousands of apartments, readying them for occupancy. Vacant apartments pose unique challenges to the safety and well-being of NYCHA residents and the surrounding communities. Unsecured units can become targets for trespassing, vandalism, and illegal activities, undermining the quality of life tenants and complicating efforts to maintain and repair public housing stock. It is essential that NYCHA implements robust, proactive security protocols to ensure vacant apartments are properly monitored and protected. I'm sorry. The delays in repairing the Section 9 apartments leave such a huge gap compared to the Section 8 apartments. This is the threat that increases each year. We began with 20 vacancies 2 years ago and now are at 104. And it is a fact that Section 8 apartments are repaired at a faster rate than the Section 9 public housing apartments. To address these concerns, I recommend a multi-pronged approach, increasing on-site security patrols, installing temporary locks and alarm systems, and leveraging technology such as surveillance cameras to deter unauthorized access.
You have another minute. You have another minute.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Additionally, NYCHA should prioritize swift turnover and renovation of vacant units to minimize the duration they remain occupied. I have one such apartment that has been vacant for 483 days. This would enable and afford some necessary advantages. And we already have 210 apartments in our development of 1,007 apartments. This affects our funding for the resident council, which daily serves the residents. And lastly, regarding vacancies, there is a high volume of apartments and activities that have vagrant issues that include drug distribution, prostitution, regular lodging, and physical damage to the apartments. Finally, transparency and regular reporting on the status of vacant apartments and associated security incidents will help build trust with residents and stakeholders. I urge the committee to support initiatives that safeguard these units, by extension, the broader New York City Housing Authority community. Thank you, Chairman Banks, for your attention and commitment to this issue.
Thank you
I
for your
yield.
testimony. I'll move to Sadie on issues GF.
You may begin.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Banks and Committee on Public Housing for this platform. I'm Sadie Gill Frederick from Reese Houses. Vacant apartments in New York City Housing Authority highlight a critical gap between available housing and the urgent needs of thousands of families. While demand for affordable housing continues to rise, many units remain empty for extended periods due to delays in repairs, inspections, and administrative approvals. These prolonged vacancies are not just a logistical issue, they represent missed opportunities to provide stable housing and reduce homelessness using existing resources. One of the primary challenges is the time it takes to prepare units for reoccupancy. Many apartments require significant rehabilitation due to aging infrastructure, including issues like mold, lead paint, outdated plumbing and electrical systems, combined with staffing shortages and inefficient workflows. These conditions can leave units vacant for months and even years. Additionally, inconsistent data tracking has made it difficult to accurately measure progress, an issue repeatedly flagged by oversight bodies such as US HUD. Addressing these challenges requires both immediate and long-term solutions. In the short term, NYCHA can accelerate unit turnover by creating dedicated vacancy reduction teams, expanding the use of private contractors, um, and privatizing units that need only minor repairs, streamlining internal processes, and adopting real-time tracking systems can also improve efficiency, accountability. Federal oversight has already pushed for clearer benchmarks and greater transparency, helping ensure that progress is measurable and sustained. In the long term, significant capital investment by funding Section 9 is essential to address the root causes of vacancy. Programs that bring in additional funding for comprehensive renovations can transform severely deteriorated units into safe, livable homes. Ultimately, improving the management of vacant apartments is one of the fastest and most cost-effective ways to expand access to affordable housing. By focusing on efficiency,
You have another
accountability, and
minute to wrap
investment,
it up.
thank you. NYCHA can better fulfill its mission and make meaningful progress in addressing New York City housing crisis. Funding Section 9 can help remedy this. Also, I want to let you know that one of the residents, Gavin, which is Michael Centrone and Alicia Griggs' son, birthday just passed. He would have been 27 years old. He died because of the hazards that took place here at Reese. And it was unfortunate because there was a lot of lead, asbestos, brown water. There's a lot of, and there needs to be an impact statement that needs to happen at Reese as well as other developments as well. And it's unfortunate that people like Dan Green, who can't give you answers for all the different things that are taking place in all these developments. They need to be held accountable. They need to be held to a different light, especially with the amount of salary that they're getting. They shouldn't get paid because they're not doing their job. Their dereliction in duty, they should be fired. All of them should be overhauled and they need to be held to a different light. They should be arrested for wrongful death if it was up to me. But um, please, council, get to Mayor Mandani, make him hold them to a different light, to the fire, hold their feet to the fire for the things that they have not done, because it's egregious, the things that they're not doing, and that they need to be held
Thank you.
to, thank you. I'm so sorry.
It's
Because
all
I'm about to
right.
be in tears behind all this. It's emotional.
Thank you for
It's
your
very
passion and
emotional.
your testimony. Thank you. We will now move to Christopher and Leon Johnson.
You
Yes.
may begin.
Hello. My name. Yeah. Hello. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. Thank you, Chair Bank, for doing this hearing. I want to make this clear that the reason that all this stuff is going on, especially with the squatters and NYCHA, is because these nonprofits like Local New York and Housing Works. They're the ones that push it for this type of stuff. And then we got a city council that is led by the criminal justice chair, no, one of the chairs, Steady Nurse, that is defending squatters. The problem is that the city council need to introduce some bills and the city council to where that the squatters are not allowed to do what they do in these units. Because we have these squatter laws, they can do what they want to the point of file restraining orders against NYCHA, which means that NYCHA can't even do anything. They can't even go near them. So we got to change the squatter. We got to change the squatter laws. That's what we got to start with. Change the squatter laws. Maybe the stuff will stop. Second, I'll make this clear that this is not about preserving NYCHA. You can preserve NYCHA all you want, but if you're not changing the laws, nothing's going to change. Going forward, they need to make it where the city council need to make it where that the NYCHA presidents are not allowed to help dictate who gets what schedules because they're part of the reason. The NYCHA presidents, they're the reason that the safety is bad because they're the ones that decide under CCOP, which need to be eradicated with the city council, who gets what schedule and what company gets what contract. Why did the city council didn't ask the people that represent NYCHA about the whole Tony Herbert situation, where he got arrested for getting bribed for contracts to these security companies? Why didn't nobody say about that? That needs to be brought up next time about the Tony Herbert scandal. Going forward, what needs to stop happening in this committee is where they do these pre-panels where they give these paid agents 5 minutes while they give everybody else 2 minutes. If you give the people 5 minutes in a pre-panel, they should the people that speak after get the same amount of time. So I make that clear. And like I said, this is not about preserving NYCHA. This is all about holding people accountable. And the way you holding people accountable is by really start asking the hard questions.
Would you like an extra minute?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
1
you
minute.
get 3
All right.
minutes. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Just one more thing is that they need to start holding these people accountable. And it's not about getting people fired. You can get people fired all you want. Like I said, Mrs. Bova Hayat is just not but a little pawn in the game of the developer. You can get rid of all you want. But I think she's way better than the last one. I think she's way better than Jamie Rubin. Jamie Rubin is a big-time developer shill. You know, you can get rid of all you want, but there's going to be somebody way worse. Madani is for the eradication of both of NYCHA. He want NYCHA out the door. See, we want NYCHA out the door. So I make this clear that the city council next time going forward, they need to start asking the hard questions. The hard questions will make people trust the council. I know there's a lot of things that the chair cannot do to stop the eradication of NYCHA. It's a lot that nobody can do to stop eradication of NYCHA, but going forward, the hard questions need to start being asked, especially about the Tony Herbert scandal. That was something that
Thank
should
you.
be asked. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We have one last person, Carmen Quinones. Carmen Quinones.
You may begin.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Ms. Quinones, you may begin your testimony.
All right. First of all, I just want to commend you, man. At least you keep on it. You know, that's why I have the utmost respect for you. You keep your fucking finger, excuse me, your finger on the pulse. And that's exactly what we need. And I just had to say that to you for real. Now, you had all these clowns like Dan Green. You had, oh God, this guy. Oh, my goodness gracious. Safety and security. These guys were, let me tell you what happened to me. Um, every year I give the Three Kings celebration where we celebrate the Three Kings come, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we did that. After we had our Three Kings ceremony on January 6th, the next day, of course, I was tired. We had over 200 kids. It was beautiful. You need to come to one of them. Um, I have lupus, and I usually get sick after these things. It takes me like 4 days to get it together again. And so anyway, while I was sick in bed for 3 days, they robbed my room. They robbed my tenant association room. They went in there 3 days, Chris. They went in there the 7th, they went in there the 8th, and they went in there the 9th. Now, Dan Green sat there and told you that the supervisor's job is to go in every building and check every door and everything. You know, they didn't even know that my door was open, barred open. They didn't know that somebody was in that room for 3 days, 6 o'clock in the morning, walking out with all of the toys and the coats and the things that my sponsors have brought us. I was so pissed after that, man. On the 9th, I really got out my bed. I had a meeting. I called the DA's office. I called everybody, Chris. Everybody. Dan, Chief Secreto, whether he can call himself goddamn Chief Secreto. These people are goddamn joke. They have no safety and security. They sat there and they lied. They lied to you in your face. For 3 days, you don't know. Now, for 3 days, you don't know my thing got locked in. And you got people searching these buildings every day? Every day? You don't know that somebody went in that room 3 days straight. They stole almost, let me tell you something. They stole almost everything that my sponsors had gave me. And then had the nerve to tell me that I must pay for some toys that were not TPA responsible. After all of that, even though they owe me almost $4,000, $5,000, I'm on a fixed income. I paid them $990 out of my money. And thank God I did a GoFundMe page.
Ms.
Which gave me
Quinones,
$535.
you have
Yes.
30 seconds to wrap it up.
Thank you. So, when it comes to the safety and security, it's not happening. When it comes to communication, it's not happening. And it's from the top on down. Everybody getting paid for doing nothing, Chris. Trust what I tell you. There is no safety and security. There is no tenant patrol. All of that is a lie. Need to find out why y'all giving them money and what they're doing with that money. Because it's not coming to public house. Maybe they're taking the money now and giving it now to Pack and Rat. Because it's not coming into public house. I would please investigate where the money, the source of the state, city, and assembly money is really going. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Quinones. Thank you for your testimony. Again, guys, thank y'all for coming out. That concludes. Oh, let me read. Moving ahead of myself. Okay, guys, we're going to read the end of the testimony. If we have inadvertently missed anyone that has registered to testify today and has yet to be called, please use the Zoom raise your hand function if you are ready to testify remotely, and you will be called in the order that your hand has been raised. If you are testifying in person, please come to the dais and check in if you missed anyone. Seeing none, I will now close this hearing and thank you, all the members or the administration, all the members of the public who have joined today's hearing to discuss this very important topic. This hearing is